Hello everyone, welcome back to another Tomato Sauce stream. We almost thought we weren't going to be able to stream today, but things ended up working out pretty much for the better. Oh, and there we have an immediate subscription. Is that Gunkin Suship Shari subscribing with Prime? Thank you, my friend.
Gunkin Suship Shari just subscribed with Prime.
I was almost expecting like a TTS message there, but thank you, my friend. Really do appreciate it. We, again, I had a hectic morning. We had a very hectic morning. I had a very problematic client that did lead to a little bit of drama, I suppose. But we did manage to get everything sorted, so all is hunky-dory, which means we were able to stream, even if we are a little bit late. So apologies for being late. But I guess first thing we'll just do is just go through like who's in the chat, right? Because we've got a lot of chatter to go on. We'll get through it and then we can get onto the subject matter of today's stream. So we have Sakadetsu, who got in here with the first. Hello, Sakadetsu. Oh no, yes it was. I don't know why so I have a plugin for my OBS in case anyone doesn't know. And it basically implements Twitch chat in it as part of the Stream Elements plugin. And what it basically means is I get Twitch chat in OBS, but sometimes for like no reason it just changes people's like name colors. So I've got like Sakadetsu in here as dark blue and then Sakadetsu in here as purple, and I'm just like, they're two different people. No, like no, that is just Sakadetsu. But hello, Mr. Tomato. I hope you have a great day. Yep. Like you say, the rest of the day is going to be great, right? It's going to be absolutely fantastic. We have Barox. Good afternoon, Mr. Dinosaur Wing. I do miss Dinosaur Wing. So if anyone that doesn't know, Dinosaur Wing is a capsule monster that we have, and we're doing a playthrough of capsule monsters that we do every Sunday. And that was one of our classic dinos, but he has since been benched, unfortunately. He just is not cutting it anymore. We have Elmaz. Hello, Mr. Tomato, also on a 7-stream streak. Hello, Elmaz. That's the spirit. We got Promanicist in here. We got the Dr. Alex. We got Ray. Damn, so many chat box today. Like the only problem with that, Ray, is I don't think we can call Sakadetsu a chatbot, right? I think that goes a bit far. I think it goes a little bit far. We got Ursus in the chat, boogieing away. I played against Ursus in the tournament yesterday, and I absolutely sacked him. I did not deserve the win that I got, and I felt really bad about it because, like, I basically just played Noodles because I wanted to play Noodles, and I got so unbelievably lucky that I managed to find exact lethal on a turn where I had no business doing so, and I was almost 100% dead on the following turn. So I still feel bad about that. I genuinely feel really bad. Hit Gaia? So I think we do need to hit Gaia Dragson. I mean, really, we should have been hitting Gaia before this anyway, but we'll take a look at the tournament results in a little bit, and we'll see that so far, bearing in mind we have a very small subset of data, the hits have done stuff, right? But we'll see. We have Mini Beaver. Hello, welcome. We got Dewan in here. Maybe a hot take. I don't want Gaia Nurse unless you hit Gaia, Dragon, and Psychic. I think that is the coldest take of all time. I think anyone that disagrees with that is just realistically someone that really likes dragons and psychics, right? The main issue I had with the nerfs that we got was, one, it didn't feel like they were harsh enough, and two, if they were harsh enough, because dragons and psychics were basically untouched, it would just mean going back to the old meta. And we'd been in the old meta for several months at this point, so why would we want to go back there? Like, don't get me wrong, Gaia mirrors are not perfect. I don't want Gaia mirrors, realistically. I don't want the entire game to just be Gaia mirrors. But if you say to me, right, we can completely remove Gaia from the game, and you go back to just playing Dragon and Psychic, and that is basically the only, like, kind of actual competitively viable decks. Or you can play Gaia Mirrors for the next month. Give me the Gaia Mirrors. Honestly, give me the Gaia Mirrors. I would rather have that than just Dragon Psychic. Because I actually think the Psychic decks is fun. I think it's cool. But it does some things that are just unfair, right? Being able to put yourself up to like 12,000 life points relatively easily is kind of gross. Now, there are obviously some caveats to that, right? If you try and do that, the Dragon deck itself will punish you and not let you do that because they'll get extra pluses off their skill, they'll summon out their bosses, they'll slap your life points all the way down, so you're not actually going to be that high on life points. But if you try and play, like, anything else, you can't deal with that many life points, right? If you're playing, like, I don't know, if you're playing Pyro, right? How do you you'll reduce the attack of all their guys, swing over all their guys, getting a decent amount of damage, but it's still not going to be a significant amount where you're actually going to be able to kill them. So now your game plan becomes, instead of actually killing them, it's like out-grind them, and then they'll run out of fusions eventually, and then you'll just slowly win as long as you don't deck out. I don't know. It's a weird one. It's a weird one. It's a weird one. But yeah, personally, I am on the hit all 3 of those decks camp. That's where I would like to be as well. You just need to buff Beast Gear World and everything will be fine. Zyphos writes matter. Do they, you know? What else have we got here? We got Promanicist. Agreed. I think Gaia being new and the best deck makes sense. It'll be a new deck. That's the best deck, best soon too. That's how it works. This meta does feel like a jump up from the slower ones, but at least post-ban it feels a little bit more competitive. Yes. So it's always a bit of a weird one. Because after we get a new product, we always say, give it a week. Give it a week, right? But when it's a ban list, it feels awkward to be like, no, the first week isn't indicative of the way the format's actually going to play out. But it kind of is, right? The meta's been shaken up. Some skills are going to like behave differently. We've got more cards in the pool than we had before. Some people will be trying out some new stuff. People will be experimental. People aren't going to know how to play against all the new experimental stuff. People aren't going to know how to play with the new experimental stuff, right? This is just like the world we live in. So you've got to think about it like the first week is still going to be indicative towards a conclusion of like what kind of format we're going to be in, but it doesn't tell the whole story. In the same way that a single tournament run doesn't tell you exactly how the tournament went, right? It's not a fair judgment, in my opinion, to just look at what we have so far and say this is 100% like the format. But I do think it is painting the picture slowly, right? And I think it is important to look at the data, but also accept there are going to be caveats. Ray, we got Dwan on the 7-stream streak. We got Ray on the 7. Everyone's on the 7-stream streak. What happened 7 streams ago, guys, where everyone like stopped watching? What happened there? Maybe it was because our stream died at some point. That could be actually. Hello, Corey. Welcome. Short yapping stream. Always yapping streams. Sometimes short, sometimes long, right? Drama. So it's nothing like to worry about too much. So basically, I don't generally talk about work. Like I try to keep like my work life specifically and my like content creator side like kind of separate. I like to like not intermingle them too much. But long story short, there was an issue that arose that had something to do with my work. I had to then deal with it. The problem that occurred had nothing really to do with me, but I had to be the one to solve it, right? And that's kind of the way the world works sometimes, right? It just be like that. Yeah, I still feel really bad about that, Ursus. Especially since immediately after playing against you, I played against Psychic, and I just can't beat Psychic. The deck I was playing, which is effectively a burn deck, how do you burn a deck that heals for 2,000 life every turn? Right? It's just not going to happen, right? The G in GR Cup stand for Gaia. Exactly. Hello, Zaki boys. And we have Hikari in the chat as well. Hello, Hikari. What we should do, actually, because we should be able to... It's an exclamation mark quantum. That should give a quantum message. There we go. And then we can also do a / shout out to Hikari. Because this is always an issue. When I get multiple streamers that come into my chat, I'm always like, who do I give the shout out to? And then I just ended up shouting out nobody. But we'll give out the shout out and we do the exclamation mark quantum. We should really, by this point, have exclamation mark Hikari. Like, we should just have that. Like, Hikari's in here so often. Like, such a big friend of the channel. We should just have that. We have Lady Jasmine of Olivine in the chat. Hello. On the 10 streak. Ooh, impressive. Tomato is a pimp and his... Jesus, okay. I'm not finishing reading that out. You have a command for quantum and not Hikari. So, to be fair, this quantum command has existed almost since we started streaming. So, where's the exclamation mark Ray? Well, I mean, I could start creating individuals just for everyone, but primarily it's to link you to their channels. That's the whole point. And Ray barely streams anymore. Used to a little bit. The greatest Dark Galaxy player. I'm trying to think who the greatest Dark Galaxy player is. Actually, I guess it's me. I did just win a tournament playing Dark Galaxy. So I guess I'm the greatest Dark Galaxy player. So that's a shame, but you know. You have a command for quantum, but not tomato sauce. Fake fan. I mean, tomato sauce is a nobody. Who even cares about tomato sauce? But have you won with it the most? Oh, I don't know. How many OCG tournaments you won with it, Hikari? Come on. I'm just curious. I'm curious. But. Today, we're going to talk about what we think might happen in the future, right? Because we have... I won Duel Links once. Does Duel Links count? I mean, it really isn't Duel Links just like the simplified baby version of OCG in the same way that Speed is just the watered down version of Master Duel? Come on, guys. I'm actively trying to trigger as many people as possible with those statements, by the way. Just so we're clear. I fully understand what I'm doing. All right, we'll hop over. We'll hop over and take a quick gander. We'll take a look at what's going on. Because we had a couple of tournaments. We had 3 of them in total. We don't need that one. We need this one. So we had the Quantum Rush 57. And, you know, exclamation mark Quantum. If you want to go to Quantum's channel, Quantum Rush. We got Galaxy Rush. There is no exclamation mark Hikari, but there is a shout out that was given. So if you want to see that, this is Hikari's tournament. And then there's RDL Weekly, which is Mono's tournament. So we really want all of those people to have commands, ideally. That's probably what we're going to do in the future. Anyone that's like a TO for sure, we definitely need to have like a command for. But basically, we had these 3 different tournaments. These are all post changes, post ban list. And as you can see, we've got a little bit of diversity here. Like, I mean, if we look at before, like, I mean, we'll take a look at pretty much here onwards, right? This was like the week beforehand, right? You might notice that there is a lot of Gaia Metarion in this highlighted section. But if we go down a smidge, oh, there's a lot more than just Gaia Metarion here, right? So, theoretically, things have gotten a bit more shaken up, right? Tomato is a vegetable. A tomato is actually a fruit. But being called a fruit or a vegetable, generally, I don't want to say there's like negative connotations attached, but I don't think you would generally call someone that as like a compliment, right? Hi, Tomat, what's happening? Hello, Dante. We are just talking about Rush Duel Links at the moment. We're talking about things that we want to see going forward, things that we think might happen going forward. That is the plan. I'm ashamed Psychic won my tournament. Would you... I guess you're a bit of a Dragon fan, aren't you? So maybe you would have preferred Dragon. I actually really like Dragon Fusion pre-Mirror Gear Star, because the deck felt fair. But post-Mirror Gear Star, this deck is toxic and I don't like it. Yap session, that's every stream. That's all of our streams. Tomato, it's RDL Weekly 24. You repeated 22 twice. That's not too surprising. Because a lot of the time it autofills it, and we just like hit enter, and then we just forget to change it. There we go. See, everything's fixed. There might be other inconsistencies like that. That will happen. Because like in the old ones, we basically just did this. And we just had like abbreviations. But like I figured if anyone's going to come to the spreadsheet and look at it themselves, then they might as well actually know what the hell it's talking about, right? Tomato, cucumber, and olives. Olives are actually really nice. Cucumber, I could take or leave. I really don't like tomatoes. Like, I genuinely really don't like tomatoes. I like tomatoes as a sauce. I don't like tomatoes, like, I don't like fried tomatoes. I don't like slices of tomatoes in my salad. I don't like slices of tomatoes in a burger. I'm just not a fan of actual tomato. I like the flavor of tomato. I despise the texture. Actually despise the texture of tomatoes. And now I'll try to trigger you as well. Veggie Man. I mean, I have to accept that. What else can I do? Pyro will win soon, trust. I mean, I would like to think that, but we haven't had any top yet. So if we move over here, if we move on over, we can see this is the current data. This is the last 3 tournaments. This is the data since the latest ban list, right? So point-wise, Gaia is still the best, right? Because it's just got so much representation. So many of the top 8s are dominated by Gaia, and top 4, as you can see here. But tournament win-wise, Psychic is being more dominant. But this isn't too surprising, because we've seen a similar thing play out before, right? Psychic still had 4 wins, despite not really having a big leg up over the rest of the competition. And if we go back to Red Boot again, like Dragon and Psychic, 11 to 12, right? So that's 1 tournament difference. But if we take a look at Psychic, comparatively to Dragons, 88 to 134, 52 to 76, like they have so much lower representation and so much lower like topping performances, but they still end up with a very similar tournament win rate. So like Psychic is just, it feels like it's that weird deck that is always really strong, but is never the best deck, or like it struggles to like stand out, I suppose. Self-hating. People fry tomatoes. Yeah, people fry tomatoes. You never had a full English breakfast? I suppose it is an English breakfast, but it also known as a fry-up, right? If you're in America, it's probably just called a fry-up. But yeah, fried tomatoes is generally a thing you can have in it. It's something I personally don't, but it's quite a common thing. For me, it's the opposite. I like raw tomatoes, but the sauce not so much. You're Italian. How do you not like tomato sauce? Like, most Italian dishes that I can think of have... I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of, like, white sauces, but, like, most of them use a red sauce, and a red sauce is always a tomato sauce. That bewilders me. Because, like, by extension, that means, like... Because, like, on a pizza, that's tomato sauce. Like, it's generally, like, a combination of, like, puree and, like, sauce and various bits and bobs, but fundamentally it's a sauce, right? They're all technically fruits. Yami Ruler, Sneak, Trust, Cope. I mean, imagine if it did actually make it in. Also, hello, Dino. Welcome. Pyro has no top 4. Pyro has not top 4 in the last 3 tournaments. If we go overall, Pyro... So, Noodles got that one top 4 very, very early. Where was it? Here. Yeah, Quantum Rush 54. Noodles did sneak their way into a top 4. And then Chemicalize also have one top 4. Which was here in Rush Duel Links Weekly 22. I can't remember who this was, but we could find out very easily, right? I played Pyro the last few days, but I don't know. Either I play it wrong, or it's really just isn't that great. I lost so many matches. The biggest issue Pyro has is Pyro will, like, almost auto-lose, in my opinion, right? I haven't thoroughly tested the matchups, but in the testing I've done, I would say Pyro auto-loses to, like, Dragon and Psychic. Like, I feel like it's just so badly positioned against those decks. But it has an okay matchup into Gaia. So, like, the issue it has is that the Pyro deck wants to play a grind game. It has really, really good grind game. Every other deck in the format doesn't want to play a grind game. They want to just kill you in 2 seconds as quickly as possible. So, it creates, like, a bit of a weird situation, right? To be fair, I played pretty bad versus Psychics in one of the tournaments. They won, so it's kind of my fault, trust. Dwan, why are you skewing the data? Come on, man. Like, you on your own, just constantly sabotaging my data set. What's going on, Dwan? Come on, man. Now, I like ketchup. I like ketchup as well. I know that's why I don't like it when I eat at work. They put tomato sauce everywhere. I mean, to be fair, one of my favorite meals, it's like lazy man meal, is a pasta bake. And I'll always have, like, a tomato and bacon, like, based sauce. And it is delicious. And it is so easy to prepare, right? It is like the most... You just put it in a dish, you whack it in the oven, you stare every now and then you get it out and you eat it. And it requires no brain power. It is almost impossible to mess it up, and it tastes delicious. But I'm a big fan of spicy food, so I will always chuck, like, things like pepperoni or spicy meats and jalapenos, stuff like that. I'll always just, like, chuck all of that in it just to make it extra spicy. I'm a big spicy food fan. Quantum did mono, and Hikari did, but Grand didn't make his Rush tourney after ban list. To be fair, I think Grand is looking to spice the tournament up a bit. I think he was saying in his Discord that he was talking about having, like, a multi-deck format, basically doing, like, an anti-meta format where, like, you're not allowed to use the Gaia skill, and maybe that would extend to some other skills as well, sort of thing. So I think he's trying to think what he wants to do with that, as well as I think a lot of people got very discouraged from the latest ban list, and it did very much kind of feel like Gaia Mataran is still going to stay on top. Now, if we go by top 4 points, we take a look at this. Gaia Mataran is still the best deck. But if we're talking exclusively tournament wins, well, then Psychic is outperforming it, right? So, like, thoughts on Spyro 2? I'm playing the remaster as we speak. Spyro 2 is a fantastic game. I actually really like Spyro 2. The one issue I have with Spyro 2 is that game has a lot of backtracking. I remember I was playing through it, and I was kind of in, like, I was in the zone, right? We were vibing with the game. We're just plowing through this game. And this is like a time where I've got like a bunch of friends around. Maybe we're having some drinks. Maybe we're a little bit under the influence. And I get right to the final boss door. And then Moneybags is standing there. And he's like, go get 80 orbs. And I'm like, bruh. I'm ready. I'm here at the final boss door. And he's now go backtrack to all the other levels and 100% them using the abilities that I've sold you further on in the game. And I was just like, bro, just let me progress. Just let me go forward. But you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. Other than that, I think the entire game is absolutely fantastic. I do think Spyro 3 is better, but that's just my opinion. Play Lobotomy Corporation. Trouble with the trolley, always. I always do 100% when I play a world. The thing is, you can't always do that, though, because, like, sometimes it'll be like you need a power-up you don't have yet, so you have to go progress through the different worlds, find money bags in all these different areas, and then you have to buy the skills, then you have to double back and go do them again. So, like, it's not always an option. But that was a very hyper-specific derailing that we just had there. But the point is, this meta is looking interesting. Now, again, we've only had 3 tournaments. We've only had 3 tournaments so far. But Gaia Matarian still looking like top dog. Gaia, like, Pure is looking pretty good. Dragons and Psychics are maybe making a bit of a comeback. And that's probably a good thing. Like, this basically means at the moment, at the very least, we're like in a 4-deck format. But I think, again, with the return of Dragon and Psychic, I think that is going to make Pyro drop down a bit, which is a bit of a shame. My issue with Psychic is that in the GRF, I face literally 0 Psychic, so I kind of don't know how to play that matchup with Gaia. Ooh, yeah, I can understand that. So in my... The way that I've been playing the matchup is I just balls to the walls, try and kill them as soon as possible. Because if you let them, like, set up, then they kind of get to boost their life points way out of, like, control. Because, like, you always have a good way to pierce, right? You always have the Swift Gaia. And Swift Gaia is great. And you get that 3200 direct attack with Conqueror of Champions. But you oftentimes, when you're not playing at Psychic, you use those to, like, steal the game, right? I use this to apply pressure, and then I can execute my opponent with, like, a 3200 direct. Or I can get a couple of Swift guys at the same time, pierce over 2 guys, and, again, like, kind of sneak the win in. Against Psychic, that becomes a lot harder to do, right? Because your opponent's going to keep gaining life, which can be a massive pain in the butt. So the way that I tend to play it is I just play it as if I'm playing against, like the way that Dark Galaxy would play against Psychic, where you just balls to the walls. I'm just going to try and go in, get as much damage as quick as possible, and kill them before they get going. Vegeta, what's the number of ads in Tomato's stream? It's over 9,000. Man, Ray really does not like ads, does he? Really doesn't like ads. Someone should gift Ray a sub just so he stops complaining about ads. Bear it in mind as well, by the way. I just want to say as well, we have the bare minimum ads that we can while still getting rid of pre-rolls. We have a grand total of 1 minute, 30-second ads every hour. That is what it is currently set to. Whether or not that's actually what happens, that's between, like, Twitch and everything, right? But that is how it is currently set up. So, in total, over a 3-hour stream, which is our usual, there should be a total of 4.5 minutes of adverts. Which, to be fair, I would much rather that was lower. But it is what it is. It is what it is. It's a skill issue for Ray, to be honest. True. There are plenty of ways to, like, avoid ads as well. Like, there just are. But. Talking about the meta, because we keep getting derailed. I think that the current meta we're in is sort of fine. I don't think this is a good meta. I think we have had worse metas. I think the GRF basically showing off that we had basically 100% Gaia wasn't a great look. But, in my opinion, the Gaia deck is fun. And I would still much rather have Gaia than Psychic and Dragon being the only good decks. Now, is Gaia plus Psychic plus Dragon, is that going to be an interesting format? I think time will tell. I think after another week, we should start to, like, really see where this is going to end up. Just more data always just helps provide more context for a format, right? So when we do get that more data, I think that is going to really help us out. The other thing is, when are we going to get more product, right? Because we know we're getting a Zuijo rerun event, but we don't know exactly when that is, I don't think. we know that the next event we're getting is Akira. So we'll have that event, and then I assume after that will be either straight into Zuijo, or it'll be another, like, in-between event before we get to Zuijo. I agree. As someone who barely plays Rush, seeing a lot of Gaia decks can seem bad, but the duels were okay, to be honest. I think it depends. I think if you played and you were trying to top 100, for example, in GRF, then you basically played like 600 games over the course of the weekend, right? And if I played 600 Gaia Mirrors, I would probably hate this format too. I think that's just a fact, right? I really like the Gaia Mirrors because in total, I've probably played it about 120 times, right? And that's since Gaia came out. So I haven't absolutely binged that matchup to death yet. So because of that, I think I'm going to have a different opinion versus someone who, again, played 600 games playing in GRF. So it's a weird one. One thing I will also say, though, is a TCG has no excuse for being in a one-deck format, right? It genuinely doesn't. There is no reason your TCG, which is a game built around deck building, different archetypes, different synergies between cards, there is no reason for you to have one playable deck. There just isn't. There's no excuse, right? You should not be in that situation. If that has happened, something has gone wrong, right? Even if the games are still like fun or the games are still fine, you should still not have one deck, right? I'm sorry, it doesn't matter like if you like the deck or not. There should not be one of them. Akira, ooh, I don't actually know, because Akira is the Tindangle, right? The Tindangle player. Because I am of the opinion, personally, that Tindangle is a really cringe deck. I don't know if that's a popular opinion. I like to think that's a popular opinion, because the deck just seems really cringe. But, I don't know, maybe not. I've been playing Master Duel. A Gaia Mirror sounds lovely right about now. Master Duel is a weird one. I haven't actually sat down and played Master Duel in a while, so... You lack of pain. I assume that's a Naruto reference. Oh, it's very cringe. Hello, Shui. Yeah, basically any deck that is a defensive style deck that has, like, basically a lot of flip effects. I'm not really a big fan of flip effects, to be perfectly honest. Like, I feel like we've had Shadow for a while, and Shadow is, like, it's not the worst defender, it's, like, the best flip deck. And then we had Ghost Trick, and I like the idea of Ghost Trick. I hate the way the deck plays. And then there's Tindangle coming out. And on top of that, we're getting an extra buff to Subterra. And I'm just like, do we need, like, 4 semi-competitive flip effect decks in the meta? Now, I think some people would say Ghost Trick is already, like, hard fallen off. But I'm sure there are some people that can still try and make it work. It's not a very pleasant experience, I guess, so I don't know. I used to encounter OTK Dragon decks, which feels a lot more frustrating. I feel the same. Dragon decks are just boring, right? They'll sit there and turtle up, and then they'll just kill you in one turn. At least the old version of the Dragon deck, it still sat there and turtled up, but it wouldn't kill you in one turn. So you would always get this, like, can I stop 2 different turns of attacks, rather than, oh no, I'm just dead, right? When do we start the Vrain's Watchlong in your Discord? I miss you, Saku. We could start doing that. The problem is I want to set a day, so I have to find a day that is free. So, like, it's difficult. Because depending on which tournaments are on, it makes it more annoying. For me, Tuesdays might be the best day, like Tuesday evenings. Because, like, Wednesday is generally... I mean, Wednesday's not bad either. Thursday's awful, because that's, like, Quantums. As well as, you know, I'll be streaming all day into it. Friday is Mono. Oh, no, Wednesday and Thursday. Is it Wednesday and Thursday are Mono's dual OCG tournaments? I actually forget when the 2 single limb ones are. I can go and have a look, right? We can have a quick gander. General discussion, memes, promotion, tournament announcements. Single Elimination 4 was on Thursday. And then Wednesday. Okay, so Tuesday is probably the best day then. Because I really like playing in Mono's single elimination events. So Gaia, too strong. I think the ban list is enough to put it slightly about Dragon and Psychic. But I think my main issue still remains, what purpose did releasing the box serve? I mean, the last time we had something like this, for me, was the Heavy Strike Excavator box. Which, if we go and have a look. So, Heavy Strike Excavator. So this was like, I think, the last box that came out, and people were like, what did this box do? Because it gave us plants that did nothing. It gave us Vulcan, which, like, it got some tops, but it didn't, like, do much. We got, like, Swift Gaia and the Buster Blader stuff, which, again, people memed with, and, like, it did okay in Ice Arc, but fundamentally it didn't do a lot. And then we got Excavator, which on release did not do very much. Really did not do very much. So this got better when they, 1, changed the maximum Excavator skill, and 2, gave us the fusions, right? That's when Worms started getting actually good. And then when Card Restoration came out, which I think was a little bit after, I think it was the set after this is when Card Restoration came out. That's when this started actually seeing a lot more play and actually doing really, really well. So by that logic, you could say the red, what's the latest box called even? Blazing Chemicalization is kind of like the second Heavy Strike Excavator, where on release it doesn't do much, right? Swift Gaia, only deck with 100% win rate at Worlds. I'm pretty sure that wasn't a Swift Gaia deck. I'm pretty sure that was a Buster Blader deck that happened to have... Was it 1 copy of Swift Gaia? I can't actually remember what you were on. I think there was an edge in deck building during the GRF that could have given a 5 to 10% higher win rate. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair statement. Vrains after Rush ends. That's Tomato's job. Who cares about Quantum? High Quantum Worm jump scare. Why are you just dissing on Quantum? What the heck, man? That's our world champion. You can't talk to him like that. I will not stand for it. But it's interesting nonetheless. It's interesting to see that this is like shaken up a little bit. We'll have to see where it goes. We'll have to see where it goes. But looking forward, we have to kind of think about like what cards are going to come out. True put some respect on his name. Yeah. We have to think about some of the cards that might come out. And some of the big issues that I've seen people have is basically the game is too quick. I think since Go Rush came out, right? So if we go to Go Rush coming out, we suddenly started seeing Metarian, Light Galaxy, Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon's actually kind of a cool deck in this, but basically Light Galaxy, their objective was use Secret Order, spam the field with as many level 7 normal monsters as you can. Then use Meteor Charge to change your opponent's monsters to face-up attack position and get a load of Pierce, or change into defense and Pierce over them. Either way, the Light Galaxy deck's entire strategy was kill you in the first 2 to 3 turns. And if you don't kill them in 2 to 3 turns, you kind of lose. So this was the first, like, oh my god, the game is accelerated deck, right? This was the fastest rush deck we had ever had up to this point. And then Metarian was a deck that basically, fundamentally, it didn't have to do this as its only win con, but its primary win con was TCB Ashura Star OTK, right? So these 2 decks, in my opinion, were the beginning of Rush Duel Links getting like into a weird state where all you kind of want to do is OTK your opponent and end games really, really quickly. When we got to Divine Genesis Blade, again, not a lot changed. The best 2 decks were still these 2 decks. Everything else kind of was still by the wayside. Cyber Dragon didn't kind of follow the same pattern, where Cyber Dragon, like, theoretically could end games relatively quickly, but it did not end them anywhere near as quickly as these. Like, basically, I would say, like, Light Galaxy is an aggro deck, Cyber Dragon is, like, mid-range, and then Metarian is a combo deck. But basically, you had wants to kill you in 2 seconds, wants to kill you in 2 seconds, kind of mid-range, right? And that was kind of the format for a long time. Then Requiem of Collapse comes out, and Psychic suddenly shoot to the top. And this deck's really cool. I really like the Psychic Fusion deck, but it has this issue that turns the game on its head a little bit, of being able to gain just too many life points, and that creating these really weird game states, where some of the lower decks just didn't have the the oomph to, like, kill this deck anymore. So then we still have Metarian, because Metarian is still Metarian. It's still going to combo off. It's still going to kill you. And then Dark Galaxy comes into the game. And Dark Galaxy is, like, it's an okay-ish counter to these two decks, because the deck can do a lot of damage very, very quickly, but it does it more consistently than Light Galaxy. But it's less damage typically, but it has grind game, whereas the Light Galaxy deck has no grind game because the Dark Galaxy deck can actually recycle pieces, and it actually made it feel like it wasn't in a bad spot. But again, it still didn't really keep up with Metarian and Psychic Fusion, right? But it's a similar issue we keep seeing, which is all the best decks in the game are just like killing you too quick, right? They either want to just wait until they can OTK you, or they'll put on so much aggression and so much pressure that if you don't draw exactly what you need to deal with it, you just kind of die really quickly. I apologize, but Vrains is import. Yes, give us more Sidra cards, and MCGA makes Sidra great again. Okay. Henchuban. I'm just looking forward to a new good Dark Galaxy bros. I mean, a new Dark Galaxy boss would be cool, but I don't think we're going to get a good one for a while. That's the issue. I think we won't get another good one until we get, like, the fusions, realistically. I think we're going to get a bad one with the Zuijo re-release, is what I would expect. I remember the good days when Metarian had only clowns and not ugly Gaia monsters. Back when it was hyper cringe. I see, that's when you really liked it. True. The falling of Rush Duel Links, talking about the shame, mistake, failure of Rush. Rip. The biggest Rush fan, Kim Friend, is here. Sudoku. But yeah. Basically, since Go Rush came out, the game has been too quick. Some people would make the argument it was before Go Rush because of this, right? When Psychic came out, or when Melody came out specifically, and the Ready Shine skill, it became, if you just draw a really good hand, you could just OTK your opponent. Like, Psychic was like, I don't want to say it was like the first OTK deck, because like Magnum exists, and depending on how you play it, some other decks can also do it too. But Psychic was like a very aggressive, very early game deck that if you just drew well, would just kill your opponent very, very quickly. Which did create some like weird states. But anyway, the point is, the reason that this is happening is because we have 6,000 life points. We have 30 card decks. We have skills that search out our combo pieces. What that translates to is the power level of Rush Duel Links, based on the timeline of when these cards should have been coming out, is much, much higher than it was in the OCG counterpart. So, how do we rectify that? Again, assuming that we say that it's a bad thing, right? Some people might look at this format and go, no, it's fine. Yeah, I don't mind, it's fine, just whatever. I personally, I would rather the games were a bit slower. I don't want games to be like going to deck out every game. I don't want games to be like 30 turns, but like games should go to like 10 to 12 turns. I think that feels about right for like Rush Duel Links, right? As Freeman would say, Zoltrak yourself now. Yeah, just Zoltrak yourself. Wasn't Zoltrak the name of the demon, not the actual spell? Or was Zoltrak the name of the spell? Oh, Zoltrak was both, wasn't it? Because he named the spell after himself, if I remember correctly. We closed Duel Links. I didn't even notice Kim is back because I blocked him. Negative view, people have fun with Rush. No, I mean. So for me, what I would do, I would increase the life points. That might be controversial. I think we have to increase life points, right? If we want to get back on track to having longer games. Now again, if Konami doesn't want longer games, they just don't do it, right? That's the simplest explanation. The other thing we could do is tone some of the skills down. Is that going to happen? I don't know. The other issue is if we increase life points and we still have Psychic in the meta, Psychic is still just going to be able to heal and heal and heal and heal. And now it's going to be even harder for the decks that already can't deal with Psychic to deal with Psychic. So like, it creates a weird feedback loop where just increasing the life points doesn't actually solve a problem. It creates a new problem that we now have to solve that. then you also have the issue of there are basically no back row, right? We have no trap cards. And some people are just like, yeah, just put trap cards in the game and that'll fix it. And in some ways, it kind of does, but in other ways it doesn't. I think it, again, creates other new problems where some of the trap cards are going to be too powerful. Some types have really good traps, some of them don't. It's a really hard problem to solve. I don't know how Konami will address the power creep they're going for without more powerful traps to force the game to be slower. We need more life points, definitely. Zoltrek is the name of the killing magic created by the demon. But isn't it both? Wasn't it also the name of the demon as well? Then ban Psychic. I mean, I just got the hardest orb on my whole career. Fudge, Hansel, and Gretel World. I can't remember what the Hansel and Gretel World is from memory. Just give us more relevant products, not a mini, not a super mini, or a structure. Give us a main box. Well, when Go Rush came out, this gave us, what, 2 structure decks? It gave us a structure deck just before, and it gave us 2 mini boxes. And this felt like so many new cards. It was really, really exciting. Until the meta just became Metari and it got really boring. But that first week was really, really exciting because we got a bunch of new product, right? The Castle in the Desert? Is that the one where you have to, like, fly up? You have to, like, jump along, like... There's, like, a building, or, like, a series of buildings you have to, like, climb up on, and then you, like, do a jumping glide, and you do, like, a little flutter at the end to get on top of a higher bit. I should work at Konami. The game would be beautiful. You would just put a bunch of BL stuff in it, though. You'd just be like, what if we had a playmat that was Weejo with his shirt off on a body pillow? I'd be like, you know... don't let Hikari work at Konami. It's all going to be Dark Galaxy Batarian. Exactly. Mono, you have to believe in me. I would ban Asuna. Nah. Why would we do that? 3 structures, 2 mini, and a selection box. Yeah, it took me like 2 to 3 months to catch up to free-to-play with all those. I actually got very lucky. I was doing a bit of grinding under the idea they might give us a selection box, and then they did give us a selection box. So I was able to, like, just about comfortably sneak in and get everything. Hello, CZ. Welcome. I believe if you release more Princess card. I'd like to see what the meta settles at if Gaia is restricted to no Metarian, Psychic, and Dragon got hit just a bit. So Dragon got, like, the lightest slap on the wrist of all time. So, like, that's at least something, I guess. Asana literally did nothing wrong. Exactly. She's fine. She's a great character. And Pro Manicus thinks he can do a better job. But, so what I personally would do, I would find a middle ground of giving us new trap cards and increasing life and potentially changing the skills as well. Because this is the issue we have. So I was streaming on Sunday and Xy's Dragon came in and he was talking about what would win out of like a modern rush deck and like the Gaia deck with the skill. And I think it kind of depends because you have a lot more tools to stop yourself from dying as well as an extra 2,000 life points. So my initial response was like, I think for the most part, all modern rush decks would probably just destroy the Gaia deck from Duel Links, even with its skill. But I think if you just draw a bad hand, you still just could just get OTK'd. And I think that is a problem that is going to persist. As we catch up to the more modern OCG game in Duel Links, the skills are going to get more and more busted as the cards get more and more busted. So we're going to have decks that were still unbelievably powerful in OCG with a skill to make it even better. Like, that is the world we're going to live in. So it's like, how do we prepare ourselves for that? And I think the correct answer is give us almost like more than 8,000 life points. Which sounds baffling, but I think it is actually the correct decision. I think we're going to need like 10,000 or 12,000 life points if we keep going in the same direction, unless we're happy with like, you can just deal like 10,000 damage in one turn. Because that's what it kind of feels like it's going to end up being, right? We're not there yet, but like as we get like the more powerful fusion monsters, and again, the skills to make them work. You have to remember, in OCG, right, when we got these fusion monsters, so for example, Multi-Strike, what's it even called? Dragia Start F, right? Dragia Start F when it came out. we didn't have 30 card decks. We didn't have a skill that said add fusion and the dragon to your hand. So you had to find all of your pieces, right? There was no, oh, here's a free +2. There was no, oh, you got 10 less cards in your deck, so drawing out the pieces would be easier. You would play games where you'd play a best of 3, and you would just never get a fusion summon off. Because it's not easy to just find the cards. Like, if you go back and look at tier lists from back in those times, fusion decks were on the tier list, but they were like tier 3 decks. Because they just weren't consistent enough. But our fusion decks are consistent enough, right? So, like... Manicist would have banned all trap cards. True. Nah, just make it so traps don't decide everything. I think the thing is that there's a balance to strike where traps are impactful, but they don't win the game on their own. But at the same time, the idea is, I'll use my trap, then, you know, your turn has ended. It goes back to my turn. I'll go and try and kill you. You'll use your trap, you've stopped me from killing you. We go back again. And then you keep doing that until someone runs out of traps. That's kind of how interaction should work, right? You should keep exchanging interaction until one person runs out, and then that person dies. Now, some people will say that's not very engaging, but that's kind of just card games, right? If you look at, like, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, if you look at, like, TCG, a lot of the games are like, do you have the hand traps to interrupt what your opponent's doing? Yes, no. And then that can just decide the game on its own, right? It's the same as having one trap. I think there is a difference, though. You're just speeding up the process. There is a bit of a difference between having one trap in your deck, which means you have to find that one card in, like, your top 5, or you don't get... You basically count as having no traps. And having a situation where you can play 5 traps in your deck, and then you can find one of those 5 cards, and then you have a chance to, like, stay in the game. Because, like, fundamentally, what you could do is just say, flip a coin, X wins, right? You don't have to play a game at that point. But, like, there's small points of interaction that we like to have that makes the game fun, right? And I think having more interaction is more fun, less interaction is less fun, right? Is still the one who doesn't draw his trap lose? Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. You're 100% not wrong. But that is kind of exactly the same as how all card games work, right? Like, if... Like we say, right? You know, we who wins the coin flip in Master Duel, and then who has Maxi or Ash in hand? And a lot of the time, that will just kind of decide it. Now, to be fair, Master Duel and OCG have changed a lot, and they have now got a lot of decks that, like, don't necessarily just die to, like, a couple of hand traps. You've got decks that can just kind of play through a lot. So, like, maybe that's not the best example. But for the most part, you just want to have points of interaction, right? Some decks will naturally be able to be stronger than others, and they'll have, like, a rock, paper, scissors type matchup where, like, naturally a deck will do something that counters another deck. But the thing to remember is that trap cards don't have to all be Mirror Force, right? Not all trap cards are created equally. Not all trap cards will just end the turn. Not all trap cards will wipe your opponent's board. Not all trap cards will do absolutely everything they need to do. And I think it's important to understand why some trap cards exist and why others don't, and why some should exist and why others shouldn't. So, for example, Shiny Shady, in my opinion, the only thing wrong with that card is that it flips down 2 cards. If it didn't flip down 2, it wouldn't matter. And if you're playing a deck that draws a ridiculous amount, sometimes you don't even care if 2 of your guys get flipped down, because you'll just tribute them off and summon something else and keep comboing, right? So, like, I think context is really important when you're looking at what trap cards do and what they can do, right? So, I think what we should do now is probably take a look at some trap cards that I think have potential to come out, that some people think should come out, right? Shiny Shady should be limited to 1. In my personal opinion, I would probably ban Shiny Shady, and I would release a new card that is a worse Shiny Shady. That is what I would do. That would be my fix for that card specifically. But, like, if you talk to, like, Voltalon, because Voltalon is a much... he is much more ingrained and entrenched into Rush OCG, he would say that Shiny Shady isn't a good card right now. And hearing that, you know, for us who are playing in Mono's tournaments, we look at that and we go, what do you mean? That card is busted. But, you know, as someone that, you know, eats, drinks, sleeps this game, he's like, no, it's not very good at the moment. Like, there's so many counters to it. It doesn't work against this, it doesn't work against that. Unless you're playing against these very specific things, you wouldn't even bother playing it. It's heavy card investment, blah, 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 blah. So like, it's just funny how you can have, like, different opinions about that, right? Okay, but let's say they add Shady, Delirious, and Sunset at 1 for hypothetical. How are we fitting that in? You think if we start getting more traps and relevant deck sizes will go up? Or will it be like Speed, where the skill becomes the engine, and then you just have Rush changing from OCG having lots of valid decks to only what's good based on yellow button? So, all right, so what you've done there, Manicus, is you've kind of mixed 3 different like points into one argument. So what we're now, so let's try and break this down a little bit. So let's talk about yellow button for a start. Yellow button is what Duel Links is, right? You might not like it. Yellow buttons are that is Duel Links. A big part of yellow buttons is deck building restrictions. And the whole point of those deck building restrictions is, I think, less about trying to make them actually fair and more about trying to make you play archetypes together. Which is why, when the Gaia skill came out, people were both excited and concerned. Because on one hand, it's not very restrictive, so you can kind of play whatever in it, which led to some pretty interesting and creative deck building ideas. On the other hand, it kind of led to just good stuff piles. Now, you could make the argument that it's not really a good stuff pile because it still kind of follows the same like natural deck building like philosophy a lot of other decks will have. Because, for example, if you're playing like Metarian in there, you need a critical mass of Metarians for that deck to work, right? So the point we're now coming down to is, should Duel Links in general have skills that are more or less restrictive? So when it comes to OCG, right now we have a couple of decks that are quote-unquote pile decks. And Gaia, in my opinion, is the biggest offender. Where Gaia is like, it's like 12 Gaia cards, and then like 28 really good staple cards. Which, depending on who you are, that could sound really cool or really cringe, right? Because on one hand, you have so many interesting deck building decisions when you have like 28 cards of space for your like spice. But on the other hand, you're not really playing a Gaia deck. You're playing a small Gaia engine in your pile deck, right? No, they're all 1 point. I mean, that's just factually incorrect, but okay. We had yellow button at the Mo, but there's a few decks that are good because the cards themselves are still good within their individual decks. Okay, that's fine. What I mean is, if we have like 6 to 7 relevant and good traps, will skills do most of the heavy lifting? Will skills that do most of the heavy lifting be the only relevant skill/deck so you can facilitate more of the traps, or will deck sizes increase to accommodate more relevant cards? That is an interesting point. That is an interesting point. So for that specifically, I would say it depends, right? Because it's always going to depend on like ratios, right? Because if, exactly the same as in Speed, if you need to play like more cards, if you need to have like more garnets in the deck, for example, your deck size will naturally increase. We've actually seen a lot, and I mean a lot, of Speed decks now just being 30 cards, like straight up, right? Are we ignoring the part where the yellow button can take bad decks and make them good because many people seem to forget the vast majority of decks made by Konami are bad? See, in my opinion, Brand, that is actually my favourite part of Duel Links. I love it when they take a bad deck and suddenly make it good. But what I think happens most of the time is they take a good deck and make it really good. And that's when I'm like, now I get why you've done this, because it's like the main character deck should be good, and it's the main character deck, so it should have a really cool skill, because it wants to make you feel like the main character. And I understand that, but taking a good deck and making it better versus, like, for example, Dynamix, right? The Dinosaur Maximum came out. It's done fuck all. It's done nothing. And it is the saddest thing in the world, because I was the biggest, like, don't worry, guys, they're going to bring out the dinosaurs. We'll get the dinosaur fusion, we'll get the max, we'll get a really cool dinosaur skill. It'll be meta. This will be the only time it's ever been meta relevant. It's going to be really cool. And then nothing. Just nothing. Just nothing. So, like, Konami have the ability, if they want, to make whatever they want as strong as they want by making the skill more or less busted. They just kind of choose not to, right? And it's sad. It's sad. I think the more traps we get, the less skillful the game is. What does that mean, Quantum? So you're saying, by that logic, right? You are saying that the player that just gets their OTK, plays their OTK, and kills their opponent with no way to interact is more skilled than the player that just died. Is that logically what you're saying? Because, like, skill expression is how you play your cards and how your cards interact with your opponent, right? So you could say, I've practiced my solitaire combo, and because I've now practiced my really good solitaire combo, I've gotten good at it, but you're still just playing solitaire, right? Whereas, like, a good player is a player that can play through their opponent's interruption. Right? Like, because you can't push for OTK, you just wait until you have enough traps, and then whoever run out of traps. So I get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying, right? The logic is you don't need to go aggressive, or you'll refuse to go aggressive until you have enough defensive options to protect you. And I get what you're saying. But I don't necessarily agree. Just because, like, I think, again, we go back to... I'm trying to, like, articulate. I'm really trying to, like, articulate. But I think we go back to, like... In Speed, for example, your monsters are basically trap cards, right? Now, that might sound like a bit of a weird thing to say, but, like, a lot of your interaction in Speed can come on... in the form of monsters, right? So... But saying that, a lot of trap cards still do see a lot of play in Speed. I think it's not necessarily, like, a really easy... Like, it's a very complicated situation, right? It's a very complicated conversation. Also, to combat the Urpu thing, why not make skills like the raise skills? I don't like those personally, but I guess... just have skill ladder and no skill ladder, speed rush. I mean, potentially, but then that divides the player base. That creates its own, like, other little problems. One of the good things about Duel Links, I'm worrying that traps will make the gap bigger again between good and bad decks. I mean, it depends on how they implement traps, right? Decks without a good skill will become bad and unplayable. Why not just make all skills balance? I mean, that would be a perfect world, but I don't think that's going to happen. Shout out to Speed Heroes dropping Arm Dragon boss monsters, then dedicated Arm Dragon decks. Yeah, it is a bit weird. Exactly, currently... good decks get OP skills, and bad decks get bad/mid skills. That's obviously the downside, right? Using traps requires skills. Traps are not Unga Bunga, and countering traps can require skills too. For Duel Links, maybe not SG Rush. Assuming the skill doesn't facilitate the OTK, but dragons, then it's more skillful than, oops, I have one trap when your turn over. The thing is, though, I think the issue is everyone is putting too much on... the trap card just ends your turn, when that's not what trap cards do. Don't get me wrong, some traps do, but those are bad trap cards, right? I think, because I was having a conversation, again with XE's Dragon a while ago, and I was saying that I would like more trap cards, because I like the idea of having more interaction. And what he heard was, I want everyone to have 3 copies of Dark Revelation and Mirror Force in their deck. And it's like, no, that's not what I want. I just want more ways to interact with my opponent, right? For me, the most frustrating thing about playing any card game at all, is when you just die randomly and you didn't really have much you could do about it. So, for example, in OCG, the biggest annoyance for me there is when someone will activate, you know, they'll tribute summon a Jinzo, or they'll activate Giant Trunade, or they'll activate Heavy Storm, they'll wipe all the back row, and then they'll do their OTK combo, and I literally don't get to play. I am a non-factor in this game, right? It doesn't matter what board I have, I am just dead. And I think that is, it's so, like, the opposite of engaging, right? It's the most, like, boring, nonsensical game of all time, right? I might as well just not be playing at that point. That is the thing I hate the most about OCG. Now, that doesn't happen too much in OCG, but it still does happen. And when it does, it feels awful. Now, all of those cards I just spoke about that cause those board states, they're all legends. And that's also kind of why I'm not really a big fan of legends, to be perfectly honest. I think the individual cards are just too powerful and you just draw them as a one-off. You get punished too hard for being aggressive. Exactly, Rush is meant to be faster, not necessarily every game should be an OTK, but faster and not just how fast it ends. Traps all feel like they do just end your turn. But again, that comes down to the individual traps, not the idea of a trap card, right? Being aggressive, like all Rush players, are boomer and arrogant. You realize that most Rush players are younger, right? Kim friend. Like, I really... yeah, these kind of traps are bad for the game IMO. If you want to lose it... I want you to lose because I made a mistake, not because I couldn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, that's basically how I look at it. I don't like when I'm put in a situation where I feel like I haven't done anything wrong, and then I just die in one turn, right? You're making plays without expecting traps when you're then you're doing something wrong. But I think it's the other thing again, right, where there are a lot of ways that you can play with traps that make them engaging and interesting, that don't just quote-unquote end the turn, right? That being said, I do not like it, for example, when I'm playing against, like, Dragon Fusion, and they just kind of slam down... Like, let's say I leave 2 level 7s on the field, right? Now, to be fair, I could not have 2 level 7s on the field, right? I have the capability to not, most of the time. To be fair, sometimes you don't really get a say in it. Sometimes the cards just, like, unfold in that way, and there's not really a lot you can do about it. But in that situation, they can just kill me. And there is, like, it's basically have negate attack or die, right? There's literally no other option. That's what Shiny Shady is bad. But to win this GRF, you had to play without expecting trap most of the time. Yes. But a big part of that was because the speed of the game has sped up to such a degree that if you don't try and take victory wherever you could during the GRF, you were just going to die. Because your opponent could do the exact same thing back to you, and if you didn't have a trap card, you were dead. So it became less about playing a control game, and more about just OTKing as quickly as physically possible. And a big part of that was because, 1, lack of defensive options. If there's only 2 cards in your opponent's deck that could stop you from killing them, chances are your opponent probably doesn't have them. And then 2, your opponent is going to do the exact same thing back to you if you don't kill them, so you have to try and kill them, right? We need straight to Duel Links traps, rush versions of Windstorm, Curse of Anubis, Order to Charge. I think, though, what I prefer is single target traps. I don't think we just want a bunch of, like, AoE traps, because AoE traps are just end the turn traps. I like it when you just stop yourself from dying to, like, the one big boss your opponent made that's going to try and absolutely murder you. Agreed. I feel you either hope they don't have the trap to play, assuming they do, which leads to such a long game because nobody commits, and then it comes down to whose trap gets popped / killed first. I mean, yeah. I mean, but that, again, comes back to we have very few defensive options, and the deck is too quick, right? Can you show traps you would add? So I did actually prepare a list of traps ahead of time, and these are... Some of them are cards that I think could get added, and some of them are cards I think people want added, right? I want battle traps that can actually turn the tide of one battle. So the issue that you also will run into is, as we go forward, like we've already started to see it with Matari and Ashura Star and with Battle Tested, or Conqueror of Champions, which is we get a lot of cards that do stuff when they summon in. So they'll get summoned, then they'll pop your battle trap, and then you're like, I needed that. So you start seeing more cards that react to the summon, which then can be good and it can be bad, right? Too often you end up in a situation where it's like, my monster got boosted to 1500 attack, and I have a trap that can reduce by 500. Show them the most balanced and logical trap, traditional tax. Traditional tax, to be fair, Mono, traditional tax is a very important trap for the game because some decks will just play deep draw, right? And if you're playing a deck that just draws and draws and draws and draws and draws and draws, you're just going to find your OTK. So traditional tax is a way to counter deep draw. It's still really, really, really good. Don't misunderstand me, but it is an important card for the game. You need ways to stop your opponent deep drawing, otherwise deep draw just becomes the only deck, right? Yeah, that's why it's good design. I mean, yeah. But again, I think it is maybe a little bit too good. Like, getting rid of 2 whole cards can be absolutely astronomical. Keep 1 copy of Shiny Shady will be good. I don't know about that, personally. So, the first card we're going to talk about is Cylinder. So, this is a card, on and off, people have come into this stream, and they have been talking about this in Discord servers, and they have been saying, we need Magic Cylinder. We need Magic Cylinder. Magic Cylinder would save the game. Magic Cylinder stops me from getting OTK'd. Magic Cylinder is like a fantastic card. This would fix all of my problems. In my opinion, Magic Cylinder is one of the most toxic cards in Rush Duel. I really don't like this card. The reason why is this card says my opponent is going to do some bullshit to OTK me, so I'm going to use my bullshit to OTK them. And I don't think eye for an eye is good design, personally. I don't like this card whatsoever. I have played this card many, many times whenever I'm playing like a competitive setting because it is like arguably the best trap in the game. It's very uninteresting. Whenever I beat someone using Magic Cylinder, I will apologize because I think it's a lame way to win. It is just not cool. It's boring. It's straight boring. It's boring. Boring card design. It's odd we have a lot of ways to pop back row. So if we add more back row, do we add stuff that you can use in response to summons so people don't moan when we have traps but they always get popped? Or do we add better battle traps that actually change how people play? Like Mirror Force cards might actually be good because they'll change deck building and game plan. Even Cylinder might be okay IMO. So I still don't like Cylinder, and a big reason as to why is there are some decks that their entire strategy is making one big guy. And Magic Cylinder just looks at that and they go, I'm going to hard counter you, and your deck now just doesn't work. Now, to be fair, maybe you shouldn't be playing a deck that makes one big guy as your main strategy, but like that's still a thing, right? People, like even Udius's deck becomes, I'm going to make one big thing, like Galaxy eventually will be, I'm going to make a big guy, the deck. And this hard counters that, and it just is really boring. A lot of games will become, did you have Magic Cylinder or not? And it's not like negate attack is like, oh, you had negate attack, I lost. Because it's like, you had negate attack, now you have the opportunity to kill me, but I might have my negate attack. Or you might not have everything you need to perform your combo, and therefore you don't actually crack back and kill me on the crackback, right? Whereas this card is quite deliberately, you're just dead a lot of the time. And so I don't like this card personally. No, I disagree. We need more interactions outside of the battle phase. I think, though, the battle phase is where interactions should happen. But because of power creep, we have now, especially in OCG, we have more and more and more and more and more and more cards that destroy cards on summon, right? Like, the first ones we kind of had for that was, like, Jointech Rex, which, then, we got that in Duel Links. Then, as we went on, like, Matari and Ashura Star was never really a played card in OCG. So, like, that one didn't really count. Like, that started seeing play when we got the second wave of Matarian support. So, like, Conqueror of Champions, when that came out a while ago, was probably one of the stronger cards because we got a boss monster that could just pop back row that was relatively easy to summon. And that deck was the I'm going to pop all your back row deck. But now, because we have that so early, and because obviously Matarian is so much better in Duel Links than it was in OCG, we have so many boss monsters that could just pop back row willy-nilly, and it's kind of a bit lame. So when we started getting that happen in OCG, they started printing more cards that respond to summons, which is, well, that's good, right? Stop on summons is good, but that was a fix to a problem that they themselves created, right? It wasn't ideal, in my opinion. It was like, oh god, we have ways to just pop all the back row. I guess we need ways to stop them on summon. And the biggest offender for that, in my opinion, is actually the Dark Matter Emperor Dragon. Because Dark Matter Emperor Dragon, I mean, we can go look him up, right? Assuming he's on here. This bastard. So this is a contact fusion made using Dark Matter Dragon and Wyvern. So for anyone that doesn't know, Wyvern, so it's a tribute monster, level 5. If you tribute a face-down monster to summon this, so you just set any card, tribute over it for this, you get to summon this from your graveyard. So all you need to do is have this in your hand and any other monster, and you get into this guy for free. And then its effect is, you can as long as you have a face-down monster on your field, so you need another face-down card, right? So that's what, 2 normal summons and a wyvern, that's all you need. Destroy 2 face-down cards on the field. Which means you can just pop all your opponent's back row for the most part. Almost all the time, you'll just pop all your opponent's back row. And then gain 2,000 attack. And this thing is like so easy to summon, right? So this thing, in my opinion, is the biggest offender for we really need trap cards that respond on summon. Because otherwise, you're probably just going to die when this thing's effect goes off. Does Rush have a card that's Slime, but it works against level 9+? I don't think so, off the top of my head. And Mirror Force? Mirror Force, again... So Mirror Force is always a weird card, because Dark Revelation exists, and there's a bunch of other, like, semi-Mirror Force cards, which all have their own, like, issues. I think, realistically, Dark Revelation was a mistake. And I think it's very telling that we don't have it in Duel Links. And I think that's because Konami realized Dark Revelation was a mistake. That being said, all of the design decisions that have come forward in the OCG were based around the fact that we had 3 copies of Dark Revelation and Mirror Force in the game, right? So, in order to like stop that, we got a lot more ways to pop back row, such as things like Dark Matter Emperor Dragon, right? Because if your opponent's going to have a bunch of battle traps, well, I'll just get rid of all the battle traps, right? Now, I guess Star Salvation Shield is similar. It is kind of, yeah. Star Salvation Shield, for anyone doesn't know, makes your opponent only be able to attack with 1 monster. Let's introduce another new annoying trap, New Start. New Start is really powerful. It's probably the best trap in the game right now. Like a card that I don't remember the name of, Flame Burst Man is stupid broken. Yes. Exactly. That's another card. That's still a new card. Like, that card came out, like, I don't know, 4, 5 months ago in OCG. That's still a relatively new card. And it's now in Duel Links. And it's like, I get why, because you're like, oh, I want the Nostalgia Bait decks. But you've given us a lot of stuff that pops back row very, very early, and we don't have the traps to deal with it now. So it's created an even more of a like, weird situation. I think Sunset is good to come to the rules. I mean, potentially. Potentially. Would it be better to add more combat trick monsters? What do we mean by combat trick monsters grid? Because we don't have quick effects. And it's not even good, Keck. Who do you think will be the next character, Rovian or Tiger? I think we are very much due for a 7s character. So I would say it's going to be a toss-up between Tiger and Yuga Goha. I want Tiger. I think Tiger makes the most sense, but I would not also be surprised if they skip Tiger. What is a combat trick monster? That's what I'm saying. Whoa, Konami, add Trunade next. I mean, again, Trunade is a card that exists. But yeah, I don't like Magic Cylinder for all the reasons I just said. So next card, Emergency Return. So this card, again, this card barely saw any play. Right, this is a card that is not a good card. I'm going to say that. Rituals in September. We should have Rituals... I mean, I can find out. We have the technology. Rituals should be coming out in... Or do you mean Rituals in Duel Links in September? If that's it, then, I mean... I guess they could. I think it'd be weird, but they definitely could. But we get them on the 26th of April for OCG. Contact Fusion, probably. I mean, potentially. It even feels too quick for Contact Fusion. We need Go Rush Fusions, Contact Fusion, and more first. What's the trap that bounces both? Alright, we'll show it in a minute. But first off, we'll talk about Emergency Return. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack, return a face-up level 5 or higher monster from your field to the owner's hand. If you return a monster to the hand by this effect, negate the attack. So this is not a good trap, right? The way that this card was designed to be used is to be played with a maximum. So you put your maximum back in your hand, and then you get to stop an attack, and then you could like summon the maximum again next turn or whatever. It's a weird card. It saw like a little bit of play in the anime. This has never really seen competitive play. It saw like a little bit, but like not very much, realistically. I don't think this card is very good, but I think this could come to the game and like wouldn't necessarily do much. Like would you play this card, right? Now, right, the benefit of this card is it's just whenever a monster declares an attack, negate the attack. So it doesn't matter about the level, doesn't matter about anything. It's just, did you have a level 5 on your field to put in your hand? You get to negate an attack. So like, I don't know, maybe if you're playing like Cyber Dragon, you can easily get level 5s out. Like if XQE comes out, maybe this card would see play. Like Swift Scarecrow. The problem is that that doesn't exist, Grid, because there's no quick effects. So like, or are you talking about like a trap that becomes a monster? Because that also doesn't exist. So the next card, this is the one that Manicus was talking about. This is Boost Rescue. So when an opponent's normal or special summons a monster face up, draw 2 cards, send a card from your hand to the graveyard, so draw 1 card effectively, right? Then you can change up to 2 attack position monsters on your field to face up defense position. So this lets you like put your guys to defense, which is nice. It gives you 1 draw, but like this isn't anything completely nuts, right? Like this is fine. This is the trap we're talking about before. I do have the other one as well, Manicus. We'll talk about that one in a minute. I'll talk about that one in a minute. But this is like, this again would be fine. I don't think again this would change much, but like it could come out, right? Primordial Slash. This is more kind of what Konami is like more likely to release. So this is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, pay 400 life points. The attacking monster loses 700 attack. Now, 700 is like, it's a bit more meaty than like the 500. It's not that much more, right? But then it has the extra effect. Then if you have a face-up legend normal monster on your field, you can destroy a monster on your opponent's field. So this, I don't hate this coming out, because 1, the 700 might be relevant in a lot of cases anyway. And 2, it incentivizes running legend normals, which we don't have much of a reason to do anymore. So like, we could actually have a little bit of a comeback, which would be quite nice. Popping monsters is obviously really, really strong, and maybe that's a reason not to do this, but like, the payoff is you can't run any of the other legend monsters, right? I think this would see 0 play. You think Primordial Slash would see 0 play? You think Sakuretsu Armor would see no play whatsoever? Because I disagree. I disagree with your opinion. Light Machines with Alligator. I know, but they would be great cards to avoid OTK. Too bad. You can play Orchist with the new Yuri skill. That's great. No restriction. I mean, that puts us back to our original point of like restrictions versus no restrictions, right? More creative deck building is cool. On the flip side, it means you're not really playing the anime decks, right? If it come out, we can bet some money on it. I wouldn't want to just take your money though, Quantum. Like, I would feel bad. But this is a card I think, like, this is the kind of card that I think Konami would be more likely to release, right? If they unlimit the Rivalry Trap, this would be a scary card, maybe. I mean, why would it specifically need the Rivalry Trap, is my question. All you need to do is find your Legend Normal and you're, like, good to go. Like, this would be, like, really good in, like, Dark Magician. But this, like I said, this is the card that's, like, more likely to come out, right? Then we've got Ultimate Fighting Spirit. So this is an interesting trap card. When an opponent's level 9 or lower monster declares an attack targeting your defense position monster, negate the attack. Then you can change 1 defense position monster on your field to face up attack position. So this is a mandatory. It's not a then you can, it's then you have to. Then, if you change a normal monster face up by this effect, it gains 1,000 attack. So the most important thing here is this is a way to negate an attack. The rest of this is like, it's nice, but like it's not important, right? Like if anything, this could sometimes be like a negative, but you still got to negate an attack, which oftentimes is going to be like the OTK. Rivals brings back Cybertech Alligator, so you can run Harpies. I mean, yeah, but again, if we got a new injection of cards, we would probably get new skills and new cards to go with it anyway, so like... But like, again, I don't think this... What we're trying to do here is we're trying to find trap cards that feasibly could come out without just being absolutely busted, right? And I think Ultimate Fighting Spirit is one of them. Then there is Undulating Barrier. So when a defense position monster you control is attacked by an opponent's monster. So again, these two have like a weird thing where it's only if your defense position monsters are attacked, which kind of makes them feel a little bit stooly. But they're still pretty good, right? We can send the top 5 cards of our deck to the graveyard. Then if a monster is among the cards sent, the attacking monster loses attack equal to the total levels of the monster sent to the graveyard by this effect times 100. So this is kind of like RNG, but you can reduce a monster by a substantial amount, right? So the idea is that your guy's going to stick around. Having nothing fast rather than traps does it limit the game design a bit? I mean, it does. It absolutely does. But I think at the same time, you could make the argument that Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically in, like, you know, TCG, Master Duel, Speed, is probably the most, like, unrestricted game out of all card games, right? In no other card game do you have cards that can resolve or, like, have an effect that does something during the activation period or versus, like, the resolution period, right? Like, that's just not a thing in other games, typically. There's much more Rush Duel can do. Konami is the one limiting themselves. Yeah, I mean, the idea is to make it simple, right? That's the logic. But I think Undulating Barrier, this card's probably, like... I don't think this card would see play, but this is the idea of a trap card that, like, they could release, right? They could release this card. I wouldn't play this card. I'd probably play this card, but I would probably not main deck this card. This would be more like a meta... call as whether I put it in or not, but the whole point is just a card that negates an attack, right? So then we have this one. So this is a little bit less universal, and this is a problem that Rush typically has, is a lot of trap cards in Rush are very specifically for this works on this type, this works on this attribute, this works on this type and attribute, which means if we're talking about generic cards to come out, it does limit the design space a lot, because we now need to find cards that work on everything, right? Whereas that's not really how Rush's traps, at least in the early days, were designed. So this is a card that works with light and dark, but this card's pretty cool. So when your opponent's monster declares an attack, shuffle 3 level 4 or lower light attribute and or dark attribute monsters from the graveyards. So this is important. It doesn't have to be your graveyard. So you can use this as Grave Hate, but then we shuffle them back into the owner's deck. Then the attacking monster loses attack equal to the total levels of the monster's shuffle times 200. So if you shuffle 3 level 4s, effectively this is 2,400 attack that you're reducing off of your opponent's monster, which is actually very significant. This card still sees a bit of play even today, because it's just that good. Now the big downside to this card is it's an Abyss-Kite card, which means, like, from, like, the anime perspective and, like, character release thing, they might not want to give us this card till we actually get to Phaser, who's, like, the guy that plays this card. But, like, because, like, this could easily be, like, a Phaser level up reward, right? But I think this card could come out and be fine. Interaction between players is the basis of many card games, including... I mean, yeah, basically. The difference is, though, is that the way that Yu-Gi-Oh!, like, the TCG, has had interactions work has drastically changed, right? It used to be that 90% of interaction was, I'm going to do a thing, and then my opponent's going to activate a trap or a quick play spell or a flip effect monster. Whereas now, we have evolved to the state of, I'm going to hand trap you, or I'm going to have a monster that has, like, built-in negates to interrupt what you're doing, right? How is trap in Rush not interacting? Even Hearthstone is a good game in the early stage and they barely have traps. I would say, personally, that there is a difference between a game that has a mana system and a game that doesn't, right? Because in a mana system game, you generally will... You'll see the board state change over the course of several turns as the amount of mana you have to play with changes, right? So it's not like bam, 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 you're dead, right? It's more like, all right, my opponent's doing this. They're gaining more tempo. Okay, now I need to, like, do something here. Like, maybe I need to ramp, or maybe I need to deal with the creature they summoned, or maybe I need to build my own board up and get my own defenses going. Like, there's a lot more build-up in a card game that has a mana system, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more like, have you drawn all the pieces of your combo? If you have, just pop off king, right? And so because of that, the way you interact has to be different. You can get away with less points of interaction, in my opinion, in a mana-based game. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't have any, right? Like, instants are still a thing in Magic the Gathering. You still have like mana abilities and activated abilities, tap abilities in Magic the Gathering. You still have secrets in Hearthstone, right? There are still ways to interact with your opponent, but you can't look at them as a one-to-one comparison, right? They're different games. The amount that you can do in a single turn is limited from game to game. So in Yu-Gi-Oh, you're basically limited by the number of cards that you have access to, whereas in Magic the Gathering, you're limited to the cards that are in your hand, as well as the amount of mana you have to spend, right? This whole deck looks amazing and is good. I mean, it was good when it came out. It has 2 Overrush rare maximums that look fire and have great effects. The problem with this design, Rush Duel, is that with this system, we should avoid creating such easy ways of OTK. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're talking about now, right? Is we have too many ways to kill your opponent very, very quickly. And a big part of why that is going to be the way that the cards have been designed, the way the OCG has released cards. But also, it's the fact we have 2,000 less life points, we have skills that hyper-accelerate us to getting to the stage where we can just kill our opponent in one turn. Having 10 less cards, I keep saying this, I think people really don't understand how much having 10 less cards in your deck lets you find your combo pieces so much quicker. Like, it genuinely is like, it's really big. It genuinely is so impactful on the game. And it's when you combine those 3 things together that creates this perfect soup of OTKs are now extremely prevalent. You have to remember that I have played Rush Duel now for years and years and years and years, right? I have played the ups, I have played the downs, I have played when the metas were great, I've played when the metas were shit, I've played OCG, I've played Duel Links, like I've played so much, and in my opinion, the worst the game has ever been in any format, in terms of specifically Rush, was Execute format was pretty bad, but that's because it just felt like it was a deck that was like released a year too early. Then it was Seven's Gears format, and that was the pinnacle of like your opponent's going to OTK you and you can do nothing to deal with it. You needed to run such hyper-specific back row to just not die. And then immediately after that, it's Rush Duel Links. It's a lot of the Rush Duel Links metas. I think the Metarian meta in Rush Duel Links was awful. It was not fun to play at all. I played so many Metari mirrors, I did not really enjoy any of them. Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes it feels nice when, like, the pieces all fall into place. You get to see a line that, like, maybe was, like, a little bit convoluted and you get to pull it off and it feels really nice. But for the most part, the quality of those games was not very good. Now, when we talk about, like, the Psychic Fusion Dragon meta, again, not a fan. But I still think the pure Gaia meta is better, if I'm honest. So, like, I guess my point is, Rush OCG is not perfect. By any means, it is not perfect. There are problems in every format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? Be it speed, be it TCG, be it OCG, be it whatever. There is always going to be issues. The game is never going to be perfect. So what I just want to do, in my opinion, is try and steer the ship closer to what I want. Now, what I want might not be what everyone else wants, right? But I have my own opinions, right? I've played so much of this game that I know the things that I like and I know the things that I don't like, right? I think you are a meta hater in Duel Links. What does that mean, though? Like, what do you mean by a meta hater, right? Because, like, I just don't like getting OTK'd, and that makes you a meta hater? Like, I don't know, that just seems like such a childish thing to say. I mean, I guess we'll go on to the next one. So next is Hard Defense Mission. This was a card that basically, it came out towards the end, actually probably towards the middle of Seven's era, which, like, I think he means you like off meta decks. I mean, I like all decks, right? I like meta decks, I like off meta decks, I like everything, right? I just think it seems really childish to just, like, say to someone that, like, you don't like this, right? I think it implies that you have this like deeper understanding of like what someone else is thinking, and it just comes across as like very immature, right? Like if it's been articulated poorly, that's fine, right? But then a lot of the time people just kind of double down on that, and then it's just like, well, you just, I don't know, just being really like rude for like no reason. It's really weird. It just comes across as very strange to me. I want Duel Links to be less like OCG meta. And the off meta from there to be good here. Well, first off, what you've just said is completely different to what Louise said. And second off, I think what I just want is the game to be enjoyable, right? Fundamentally, that's all I want. My goal in pointing these things out is to say the game can be really, really fun. But the game, a lot of the time, isn't really, really fun. And how can we make the game more fun, right? That's the logic. And I've specifically said several times that this is like my opinion, right? I've said I want to steer the ship in the direction that I would like the card game to go. Not necessarily the direction the card game should go, right? Like, I've tried to make that abundantly clear, right? Pure Matarian is a fun deck. Pure Matarian is a fun deck in some ways. I think playing against Pure Matarian is not fun whatsoever. Look at all these battle traps. If we had some of them, maybe they'd actually make it into the battle phase. Maybe potentially, right? Potentially. I think when it comes to what I would like, right? You want Duel Links to be less like OCG meta. What does that mean, Manicist? What do you mean when you say that? Because, like, I like the OCG meta, so why would I want Duel Links to be less like the OCG meta? I don't really get what you're saying. And the off meta from there to be good here. I mean, that's just like, I mean, that to me that is accurate, right? I would like anything that wasn't good in the physical game in OCG to be good in Duel Links, right? Because isn't that what Duel Links is for, right? When you really break it down, what is Duel Links, right? What fundamentally is Duel Links? Duel Links is a place to play a slightly different version of games that already exist. It's a place where you can play cards and decks that weren't good in a previous format, now reimagined and made a lot stronger with a different release schedule and with the introduction of skills. And it has a very heavy emphasis on making anime decks playable, right? Different decks being meta/good in Duel Links than OCG. You've just repeated yourself. Different decks. But I just said though that I like the Duel Links, the OCG meta. So again, I don't get where you're going with this. I do not understand your point of view here. I guess decks that were meta in OCG didn't have to be meta in Duel Links again, but instead the weaker decks should be meta instead in Duel Links. So it's a very nuanced conversation because a lot of the time, anime decks in general are probably just going to come into Duel Links being strong, right? I think that realistically, Duel Links is generally anime first. That always tends to be their goal. They release characters and you play skills that are attached to characters, and then you're supposed to play those characters' decks, right? That's kind of how the game is kind of built. And if the anime character's deck was good in OCG, it's going to be good typically in Duel Links as well, right? But yeah, I get what you're saying. Hi, Tomato. Have you spoken about Ascetic Trap Hole? I'd like to see it personally. I actually do have it in the list of cards we were going to talk about here in a minute. But hello, Igami. Welcome. To be fair, I think the meta-hater comment might just be a language barrier thing. I mean, it might be, but he didn't try and correct himself. He didn't try and elaborate. He just said KKK and went quiet, which tells me he probably did mean it that way. Otherwise, he would have tried to, like, you know, make up for the misunderstanding, right? It's not my point. I'm trying to articulate what Louise is saying. I don't care what you like or not. I mean, potentially, but I mean, he made no effort to try and do so himself, so I assume he's just not... I assume he was just trying to be rude, is what I would assume. Maybe he's talking about, like, Psychic. Psychic is meta in Duel Links, but not meta in OCG Rush, which is good when different decks are good in different formats. I mean, I guess, right? Like, it's one of those weird situations you find yourself in. KKK is a bit of a more of a laugh. I mean, but that's the point though, right? Like, he laughed at it instead of trying to correct himself, right? So either he was rude and then he didn't like my response, or I don't know. What other option is there? But yeah, it's a weird one because on one hand, any deck that was bad in one game could, again, we could throw a skill at it. They're not going to release a brand new card to make something suddenly good, but they can release cards early. So a good example of that is like Cyburst, right? Cyburst didn't do very well when it was first released into Rush Duel Links, but it did get some support cards, right? We did get things like the Chaos Femtron. And Chaos Femtron suddenly made Psychic a lot stronger. And then we get things like Metarian, where, I mean, to be fair, Metarian was like kind of fine anyway, but they gave it Reactor early, right? And so they had all of these ways because they had decided they wanted Cyburst to be a strong deck. So they gave it a pretty good skill, and that wasn't enough, so they gave it Chaos Femtron. Then Metarian came out, and they gave it Reactor, which gave it an extra boost in consistency and playability and made the deck really, really powerful. Then they gave it a skill to also pair with Reactor to make it feel even stronger, right? So clearly, Konami has the ability and the desire to buff specific decks and make them a lot stronger than some others. So it just comes down to which decks do they think deserve the limelight. Now, there was, if we go back to our spreadsheet, there were specific times in the past where they have gone out of their way to make quote-unquote bad decks good. I think it was Evolving Rising Heart. This was a great example. Royal Rebels, back in the day, really struggled to do much, because if you think about it, we didn't have the skills that we have to make Royal Rebels playable that we have in Duel Links, right? So Royal Rebels could still do stuff, but it required a lot more heavy card investment, right? You effectively needed to like summon a guy, tribute the guy, summon out another guy, then tribute that as well as something else to summon out your heavy metal, and then you can use heavy metal as effect to pop guy. And don't even get me started on Doom Metal, right? In order to get Doom Metal to work, until we got the later support, such as Bayer, such as like No Wave, which we could like special back from the graveyard, in order to get that to work, it was so ridiculously difficult, right? You have to get 2 level 7 or 8 monsters, then tribute them to get it out, and then you get its effect off. Whereas in Duel Links, we can click the button, we get immediately 2 bosses onto the board, we tribute both, we have Doom Metal. Doom Metal has never been easier to use, right? It comes down to what does Konami use to decide what's worthy to be good via support/skills or not. I mean, basically, right? But the whole point is that they made Royal Rebels, that was a bad deck, a good deck. Thunder. Thunder did basically nothing, like literally nothing in OCG, and they gave it a good skill, and suddenly it was really, really good. Ancient Forces. This just wasn't a deck. This fundamentally just was not a deck in OCG. They gave it a really good skill. It became a strong contender. It was very playable. Right? These are just like some like Dragonic Resonance. Like there was no deck even remotely like Dragonic Resonance, right? There was the Dragon Pile deck that would play like 1 copy of Slayer just to occasionally pop back row. And that was it. Like the whole like Earth Dragon thing was not a thing until Resonance, or specifically Slayer, got its like retrain way later on down the line in OCG. So the point is, they can make these decks stronger. They can give these skills and they just decide whatever they want to be better or worse. So it feels really disheartening when a lot of decks just get left to do nothing, right? Like Sea Serpent. Players were like really excited when they heard that Sea Serpents were coming out, and then their skill was just garbage. So Sea Serpent's done nothing, and that's just disappointed a lot of people, right? The game failed when the meta only has like 1 to 3 good decks. The problem, Monosync, with that is, it's like, what do we mean when we say that? Because a lot of the time, there will be 1, 2, or 3 best decks. And then there'll be decks that are like a whole tier below. So it's like, when we say good decks, do we mean like tier 1 decks? Or are we talking like tier 2 and tier 3 included? Because if we're talking about like tier 2 and 3, even this meta, like this is like what, Gaia's probably like tier 1. These are still going to be like tier 2, maybe with like Gaia Hero thrown in. And then like Gaia and Hero under that. So like there's still like plenty of like quote unquote good decks. So like it's not easy, in my opinion, to like, I think a lot of people like to think it's really nice and black and white, and that like, oh, if you just do this, it will like solve the problem. More like playable deck, like I can play Sea Serpent against a good deck. Oh yeah, you can't. You're not realistically going to manage that. I mean, feasibly right now, like probably these decks, maybe Matarian. I don't know, maybe Overlord, but even that might be a bit cope. Like these decks can kind of take games off each other. That's kind of how I look at it. I like the current meta. Now, I still stand by the fact I think the decks, you know, higher at the top are going to win more often. But these decks can all comfortably take games off each other. That's how kind of I look at the meta right now. So, like, the other problem is it's always going to be very subjective, right? Different people are going to like different things. My personal want, like my personal philosophy of what I would like in the game is just have a whole bunch of versatility. I want diversity. I want a whole bunch of different decks all being powerful enough at the same time, right? I want to be able to go into a tournament and have like as many options as possible while still not just joking around, right? I don't want to like take bad deck into tournament and know that I'm going to lose immediately. I like the idea of, oh, there's like 8 different meta viable decks and I can pick any of them and take it into tournament and have a really great time. That's when I'm having the most fun, right? When I have choice, I guess. Serpents confuse me. The skill is bad, so you'd think they don't limit cards, but then they limit cards and only give us one of the good cards for the deck. I mean, basically, it's a weird one with Sea Serpents, right? Because Sea Serpents have so many weird limitations, right? First off, they put one of their cards as a bundle card, which is already, like, weird. What is the good card for Sea Serpents? So the best Sea Serpent card is Grand Extreme, which lets you special summon a Sea Serpent from your hand to the field, and then you can take 5 cards from your opponent's graveyard and put them back in the deck, right? So the way that was used originally, so I did speak to Voltalon about this as well, and people would play like a Granganus engine in like Dragius pile decks, and then you would like use it to just like cheat out a free body, like just a big guy. But again, you have to remember that this would have been during like early Fusion format and well before Go Rush. So everything's already like super muddled when it comes into, or when we're talking specifically about Rush Duel Links, because again, the cards are all coming out in weird places, right? Any card limited by Konami is a good card by their standard. I was looking at the name. Oh, that's fair. I mean, where were we? We were talking about Hard Defense. So Hard Defense Mission. This card did see a lot of play originally, but would this card even bother seeing play now? Right? So this card was like a side deck card a lot of the time. Some decks would main it. And the logic is, it works on only level 8 and lowers of 25. Now, you have to remember as well, this came out before Fusions came out, which means when it actually came out, this was a lot more impactful. This is back when we had things like Dragius running around in most games, right? So Hard Defense was actually quite good at that time. Right now, though, we can just summon out a bunch of, like, level, like, 9s and just not really care. Now, the one good thing about this is, this would work on, like, the Gaia fusions, I guess, because they're 2600, they're level 7, so, like, there's that. But, like, this is, again, it's really hard to find generic trap cards that would actually potentially, like, see play, but this is one of them that potentially could. Then there's like Universal Destruction. This is another really weird trap. But I think, personally, I think this card is too good. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack, pay 3,000 life points, destroy the attacking monster. So no setup, right? So it's basically like Primordial Slash, except you don't need the Legend Normal monster, right? You just get to freely pop anything. You just have to have 3,000 life points. Now, 3,000 life points is a lot. That's half your life points. But popping any monster is really good. And you don't have to use this. You could set this and just basically have it as bait to get popped by back row hate. I think, personally, I think this card would see a ridiculous amount of play. So I don't think this card's likely to come out. But I think as is, the game is so quick that you most of the time probably won't care about losing 3,000 life points. Yeah, this would go too hard in Psychic. That is exactly what I was about to say as well, Quantum. This card would be too good in any deck that can gain a load of life points. Realistically, that's just going to be Psychic. Even now, if I think about like OCG, there aren't many decks that actually gain life points. In fact, over the history of OCG, it was like, realistically, the Chemical Cure deck, like Chemical Cure Blue, Chemical Cure Red, Chemical Cure Purple, which, by the way, when are we getting those cards? Those cards are so cool. When are we getting them? And then it's like Aqua, like Bubble Era, when it was like at its best, gained a decent chunk of life points, but again, I don't know. Like, life point gain has never been as big of a thing as it is in Psychic in Rush Duel Links. Like, that is like the biggest. This is the most problematic we've ever had, like life point gaining being in Duel Links. Pay 3,000 to end yourself earlier. Roman level 40 use them. Oh, does she actually? Oh, she uses the chemical cures. But they're so. The thing is, right, if the chemical cures come out now, we'll go and look them up quick since we talk about them. If they came out, are they not like already a little bit too late? Like, in my mind, these are already too weak. So we got blue, which is send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, gain 400 life points. Then you can add any number of blue medicine from your graveyard to your hand. So what you would ideally do is have used all 3 blue medicine, put them back in your hand, and then, you know, use them all, gain more life points. Chemical Cure Red, if your opponent has a monster in their field, so then top card of your deck to the graveyard, gain 500 life points, then add any number of red medicine from your graveyard to your hand. And then the fusion is send up to 3 spell traps from your hand to the graveyard, so obviously you're adding back all your medicines. Draw cards equals the number of cards sent to the graveyard to meet the requirement, then gain 900 life points. So again, this just gains a crap ton of life points. And this card specifically lets you draw a whole bunch more. But like, would you actually play this? Like, I think I'd play it for fun. I don't know if I think this would be good without like a really good skill. Like, again, drawing a whole bunch of cards is really good, but you need to then just find your reds and blues, and when you just draw into them naturally, they're just spell cards that gain life points and don't do anything else. Whereas, like, if these had come out, I don't know, when Go Rush came out, like, maybe? Like, because that would have been before we got Candy Live. Use Slime, use this, Magnum OTK. I mean, yeah, could do. You would just not run the spells? I mean, I guess, but then, like... and get the free life points? Yeah, I mean, their bodies aren't bad, right? 1,300 and 1,300. Would you even bother with the fusion, though? Like, the fusion's effect is, like... I guess it's not bad. I guess the next question is, would you play these two in, like, just the Psychic deck? I mean, maybe. Like, some people are still running the, what was it, Costume Designer, whatever the card's called. So, like, you could, like, do that. Isn't there skills for Red Potion? There is, but it's just, like, set it, isn't there? It's just, like... it's medicine. Blue medicine deal. Can be activated during once per duel. Set a blue medicine deal from your hand to spell and trap, then draw a card. Their bodies aren't bad. This skill would just add blue and red medicine to the grave for free. Yeah, that's basically what I would expect, right? El Chico plays basically a 1200 beta that does nothing. Yeah, we're talking about, it's Costume, right? It's called Costume? Nope, we're looking at cards. This one. And this is in it because it's got like 800 defense. That's the primary reason. And the other ones have more attack, slightly less defense, but it's like 500 and 400. So it's not like a massive difference, right? I used to use this red with baseball. Cool. So yeah, I don't think this card could come out. But who knows? The next up is Intentional Draw. This is the card that Manicus was talking about earlier. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack targeting your attack position monster, return the attack target and the attacking monster to the owner's hand. So this is arguably too good, but you can play around it, right? So for example, the reason this card would be really good is because one, it works on anything. And two, if you use it on a monster from the extra deck, so a fusion monster, it basically kills it, right? You just kill that extra deck monster. If they attack into one of your like low-level monsters, then you just put it back in your hand and you just have it fine for next turn. You don't really care. If they attack your extra deck monster, now this actually becomes an interesting decision of like, are we both giving up our extra deck monsters in order to do this? So that's what I mean when I say you could play around it. So if you don't want to lose like your extra deck monster or your boss monster, you just make sure they're attacking face down cards or your opponent's boss monsters and extra deck monsters, right? So it adds like an interesting dynamic, but I still think this is probably too good. Then again, if you leave a guy in attack mode and then this gets popped, you've now like you took the risk of leaving your guy in attack mode and now it's just going to get attacked over and you're going to take a load of life points, right? It seems fair to me, lots of pros and cons. I guess the thing is, I feel like if this card did come out, this would be like a limit 1 bundle, right? And I think that's what makes it like sad, is I don't think this card would see or could come out at like 3 copies. At least that's how I like see it. This would go hard in Pyro. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. This would be really good in Pyro. I mean, this would be really good in a lot of decks, to be honest, but I think especially Pyro. Then we have Shiny Shady. So this is the card. This is the problem child. This is the card that everyone points at and they go, we need this in the game. And other people point at it and go, this card does too much. I personally think this card does too much for me personally. But that being said, in some situations, you can play through this card. So Shiny Shady. When your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster during their turn, send a card from your hand to the graveyard. So you have to leave a card in your hand. Change up to 2 face-up effect monsters, so effect monsters only. So this does come up where you can't change normal monsters to defense. To face-down defense position. Then if you change the monster on your opponent's field with 2600 or more original attack, to face-down defense position by this effect, gain 1500 life points. I'm toying around with Sea Serpent Burn. I mean, if you make it work, I'd love to see it. This card would be good as a one-of. Anything more is too much. It does way too much. I think at the point we're at right now in Duel Links, this hard ends the turn. Right? If you make a fusion monster and it gets flipped down, you've already spent so many resources that you're probably just having your turn end. Now, to be fair, Gaia gets out fusion monsters very, very easily, so maybe they would be able to play through it. But against most other decks, like if you're playing against dragons, and they do the whole thing, they use their skill, they summon out like a Mirror Gear Star, and then you flip it down, what else do they do, realistically? Their turn's probably over. At least you see the delay when you normal. That is also very true. That is also very true. In Duel Links, I don't think it can come out for a long time. I'm of the same opinion. I think this card is a little bit too good for Duel Links at the moment. As well as there is so much you can do with this card. The thing is, a lot of the time when I'm talking to people and I'm saying like, oh, I just don't want to get OTK. People are like, oh, put Shiny Shady in the game. And I'm just like, I don't think Shiny Shady is the answer. Shiny Shady is like, this is a card that is seeing a lot of play right now in the OCG. So, I don't know. I don't think this card can come out just yet. So then we have the block. So this is like Shiny Shady. This is another one of those like activate on summon cards. But like, as you'll see with some of these, they have like quite annoying restrictions. So when your opponent normal or special summons a monster in face-up attack position and they have 2 or more monsters on their field, change up to 2 level 8 or lower attack position monsters on your opponent's field to face-up defense position. So first off, if they have activated effects, they could still activate their effects. And the other big thing here, obviously, is that it's level 8 and lower. So this does not stop big fusion monsters from just running in and ruining your day. But this does stop everything else, right? Okay, but if you see the delay and your only way to out it is burst Wingman, all you've got to do is play into it. So you either play and lose resources, or don't play and they keep it. I mean, basically, yeah, right? The thing that makes Shady them even more potentially annoying is by playing you can play around it a lot easier depending on how easy it is to fusion summon, right? So for example, you could just get a Gaia out, tribute it for Gaia, use Gaia effect. You've now committed 2 cards, and now you forced out Shady, which is 2 cards out of your opponent because they have to discard a card as well. Shady is always going to be heavily telegraphed because we're going to feel the delay and because they'll leave a card in their hand. But like, there are ways to play around it and there are ways not to, but I think overall it's just still too strong. Release the monster first in the artwork before adding their traps, Konami. Nah, we don't need to do that. That's silly. Power crept Crisis Tower. I mean, kind of, right? Basically. I mean, we're going to talk about that in a sec as well. But the block is like... I mean, we know how much Konami likes their the cards, so we could potentially get the block, right? I could see this coming out. But the question then becomes, would this do enough, right? Because if, for example, your opponent summons out a Shurstar first, and we're just, again, talking about Mitari and Guy, if they summon out a Shurstar, you now have to sit there and you have to be like, am I going to activate the block now and change potentially his other defense position, or do we just sit on it and wait, hope he misses the block, and then use the block on like a Gaia fusion later? So then we have Traplet. This is a very similar card. So this is only on special summon, but we can change up to 2 face-up level 8 or lower monsters on your opponent's field to face-down defense position. So this card did actually see a little bit of play. This card was seeing some meta relevance at one point, but it has the same issue of it's only level 8 or lower. It does put them face down, but it's only on special summon. So like, this card is just, in a lot of ways, worse, but this can allow you, if you have monsters that have activated effects, to summon out your guy, use the effect, like get a draw off it, weaken something, depending what your effect is, right? So this does stop Gaia from OTK, and Psychics from OTK, but yeah, this is only from Graveyard. I will say, though, that special summoning from the Graveyard is it is more common in OCG. Like, when we get more cards that do come out, eventually we'll have more ways to summon from Graveyard. God, what's up with all the level 8 or lower restrictions? So this is how they made... like fusion monsters and maximum monsters have extra built-in protection, was having things like level 9 and lower, level 8 and lower, right? So that this is a line that is here specifically to protect fusion monsters. And on one hand, it's a good thing, because it makes your fusion monsters feel quite nice. If you go into a fusion monster, you don't want to just immediately lose it, because that feels kind of bad. Right? I've just spent a lot of resources, I've made my boss monster, and then you flipped over a pink card and my card's gone, and that doesn't feel very good. On the flip side, a lot of the problem cards that will end the game out of nowhere typically tend to be your big fusion boss monsters. So, So the next card we'll talk about is XQT Riding. Who remembers the XQTs, guys? XQTs. Any XQT fans in the chat? So this is, when your opponent normal or special summons an effect monster face up, we can special summon one monster with an attack less than or equal to the monster from your graveyard to your field of face up attack position. So we get to special summon one monster that has an attack less than or equal to the monster's attack that your opponent normal or special summon. So that's fine. This card used to get abused with Barrier Statue, so you could like slam down a floodgate during your opponent's turn. But then you can make up to 2 face-up monsters on the opponent's field lose 1800 attack. So this is quite nice because this doesn't like stop them. And your opponent can still like tribute over them, they can still use their effects, they can still do quite a lot with those cards. But this also can just stop you from randomly dying sometimes, which is actually quite nice. So this is another like on-summon trap card that can protect you. But like, again, typically this only saw play during a format where getting a Barrier Statue was like the main thing every deck was doing. But I do quite like this trap still. Then we have Crisis of Sacred Tower. This is one that was mentioned earlier. So when your opponent normal summons a level 7 or higher monster, change a face-up level 7 or lower effect monster on your opponent's field to face-down defense position. This was another one of those cards that saw a lot of like side deck play. It did see a bit of main deck play, but like primarily you'd be like, is my opponent playing a level, 7/8 aggressive aggro deck? Okay, Crisis of Sacred Tower, I'm going to put this in. And this card did see a lot of play. But again, this came out like just before Fusions, or like just as Fusions came out. I can't remember exactly, but it was around then. And we already have quite a lot of fusions in the meta that we're in. We also already have a lot of Go Rush cards, so probably wouldn't be as strong. Then we get Ascetic Acid Trap Hole, another card that was mentioned earlier. So when your opponent normal summons a level 3 or lower effect monster, destroy that monster. So this card did see a decent amount of play because your opponent would play little like starters. I mean, calling them starters sounds a bit weird, but there are a lot of like effect monsters that are level 3 or lower that kind of get your plays going. Like they'll start out by doing a big mill play, or there'll be a card that pluses you, and being able to just get rid of that card immediately can sometimes just end your opponent's turn, but on other in other ways will like slow their turn down. So like maybe they can't get out the extra boss they wanted to, maybe they can't get the boss out of their hand in general because they only had 2 normal summon monsters. So like Ascetic Acid Trap Hole, this again primarily saw side deck play, but it did see play, right? And it was relevant at specific times. Then we have Dragonline Pit Trap. This card saw a lot of play in Cyber Dragons. It also saw play in XQT and did see a bit of side deck play as well. So this was one of the few cards that we had at the time that could react to a special summon. And that was very important because this was during the Sevens Gears format, where, again, the best deck in the game would summon out a big bungus that can attack twice and had like 7,000 attack and would just OTK you. So you just wanted any way to interact with that so you just didn't die to that, right? So when your opponent normal or special summons a level 8 or lower monster face up, bearing in mind again, Sevens Gears was a level 10, so you couldn't do this to the summon of Sevens Gears itself. You had to hope that your opponent did an extra play as well, so it wasn't even like super good into that format. Lower monster face up, send a face up level 5 or higher monster from your field to the graveyard, destroy all face up monsters with the highest level on the field. So this would wipe your monsters out as well. So you had to play this very deliberately, right? There was a lot of times where your opponent could play around this, which did make things a little bit more complicated, but this card did see a decent amount of play and was especially good in Cyber Dragon. Then there's Nobody Scat Thief. This is a card again that saw a ton of play. This at one point was basically a staple. This saw play in like every single deck. So when a monster on your field is destroyed by an opponent's attack or card effect, draw 3 cards. Then we send 1 or more cards from your hand to the graveyard. Then if you have no monsters on your field, you take no battle damage from your opponent's level 8 or lower monsters attacks this turn. So this had like a soft Waboku effect, but you could use this to basically deep draw into your deck. So if you already had like 4 or more cards in your hand, I guess 3 or more, you could use the effect, draw 3, then send 1, end your turn with 5+ cards in hand, and then just draw 1 extra card and effectively plus, right? But what a lot of people would do is they would look at their hand, realize nothing in their hand was super good, and then discard all of their cards in their hand just to basically dig deeper into their deck to find the combo pieces that they needed. So this card saw a ton of play, an actual ton of play, and it was just really, really good. Then there's Star Salvation Shield. This is a card that sees play even now. This was basically released as a direct answer to Sevens Gears, and that will become very apparent when we read it. But when your opponent draws a card during their turn, or when your opponent normal or special summons a monster during their turn, send 1 monster from your field to the graveyard. Your opponent can only attack, or can only declare an attack, once this turn. So we give up a monster, but we say our opponent can only attack once. Now, depending on what is OTKing you, this can be huge, right? Only taking 1 attack is really, really good. But then you can take control of a face-up level 9 or higher Magical Knight type fusion monster whose original attack is 3,000 on your opponent's field. So this is exactly yoink your opponent's Sevens Gears, which is really funny because that deck was like actually insane when it was like a tier 0 deck. I wanted to release Scat Thief just to see how it gets localized. Yeah, it would be funny, right? Because it does have a very silly name. And then the last... Is this the last one? Yeah, this is the last card we're probably going to talk about today. This is Sunset Rebirth. So this, again, is a card that sees a decent amount of play at the moment. But this card is also quite easy to play around in OCG. It wouldn't be as easy to play around in Duel Links. So when your opponent draws a card during their turn, or when a monster on your field is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, we can special summon 1 monster from your hand or graveyard to your field of face-down defense position. Then up to 3 cards on your field, other than this card, cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects this turn. So basically, your opponent draws a card, We special summon anything we want from our graveyard in face down defense. Then we choose any 3 cards on our field, which can be monsters or spell traps, and they cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is really good when we have things like Dark Hole in the meta, right? When we have things like Heavy Storm in the meta. When you have ways to just absolutely destroy your monsters or your back row, having a way to protect them is really, really good. So this is a really strong card. Now, the way that people play around this in OCG is there is a card called Curse of the Rising Light, I think it's called. And what it basically does is you get to flip one of your opponent's, or you get to change the battle position of one of your opponent's monsters. So face down can become a face up attack position, or face up attack becomes, I think it's just face up defense. But then, if it's the first turn of the player going second, or if your opponent activated a trap card this turn, such as Sunset Rebirth, you also get to draw 2 cards. So very, very powerful card, and that's how this card specifically is getting like countered at the moment. But we wouldn't have Curse of the Rising Light in Duel Links, right? So this card would just be a big throw a wall out, have a lot of protection. Sunset is balanced in Duel Links. I mean, potentially. Does that include the draw phase? Yes, it does. Does include during the draw phase. There's no draw phase in Rush? I'm trying to think now. Is there a draw phase in Rush? There's a draw. You draw a card at the start of your turn. I can't remember if there's like a dedicated phase for it. I think it's just called a normal draw. I think you just have a normal draw during your turn. But I can't remember. It doesn't come up often, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, that is basically it, right? These are some of the trap cards. Again, I think some of them are playable, some of them aren't. Some of them are really good. Well, not you. Some of them are really bad. Like, I don't think Emergency Return would probably do much, or Boot Rescue. Some of them I think would do quite a lot. Things like, Intentional Draw, things like Universal Destruction. Like, maybe Execute You Riding would be a good card. But this is the issue, right? When people are like, just put more trap cards in the game, it unfortunately isn't that simple, right? These are all of the, like, generic trap cards I could find. The big issue is, a lot of the trap cards in this game, you need a machine monster, you need a light monster, you need a wind warrior monster, right? Like, they're very hyper-specific to their archetype. And that does mean that the way that Konami seems to be doing it is we don't want to give one deck a load of good traps and not all the other decks, because every single time we get good traps, they're basically for every deck, right? They are all generic, all the traps that Konami is giving us. According to the wiki, there's a draw phase. Okay, I just checked EDO. Seems like there's a draw and standby phase. I knew there was a standby phase. Sorry, I wasn't listening. Can I have Shady at 3, please? No. Give me more traps and my trap pigeons can rise again. I mean, it'd be a cool deck, personally, but... Hello, I'm back. What did I miss? Hello, Ray. We've just finished talking about trap cards. And all the trap cards that we think could come out. The thing is, though, it's difficult. Because, like, I don't think any of the traps we spoke about here solve the fundamental issues that we've been having with the game. And again, these aren't just like... This isn't just my opinion, right? This is an opinion that I see echoed across so many different people in the community, which is, we want more trap cards. I don't like getting OTK'd. I don't want to just die immediately. So what we're trying to do is come up with solutions using the tools that we have access to work out how we can make that not happen. Now, do these cards do that? Thank you for following 260977. I mean, plant monster there, don't worry about that. But yeah, fundamentally, some of these traps are going to accomplish that goal better than others. Rush does not have a standby phase. I mean, Rush has a standby phase in EDO, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, overall, I think for me, I would just like to see more trap cards get introduced across like all types and some new generic ones. I would like to see the life points go up, because again, fundamentally, what I want is to have an enjoyable experience. That is ultimately what I want. And an enjoyable experience for me is not getting OTK'd randomly, right? That is what I constitute as an enjoyable experience, right? Having a little bit of back and forth, having a little bit of a tug of war, an enjoyable kind of gameplay loop, right? That's kind of what I want from the game. That's what I would like to see. And I think the way that the design philosophy of Rush Duel Links has been since Go Rush came out has been moving more and more away from that. And I think pre-Go Rush, I felt like the game was in an okay spot. I felt like there was... No one just kind of OTK'd the other one, typically. Like, there was a bit of back and forth. Even if there wasn't, like, a ton of back and forth, there was still more than we have now. Is there something like Force of Thief, but without the psychic effect? What's Force of Thief? Have a look quick. I mean, is it a rush card? This one, okay. I have seen this card's artwork before. I cannot remember what it does. When this card is in your spell and trap card zone, destroy by opponent's card effect. It's up to 2 spell trap cards from your graveyard in your spell and trap card zone. You could choose up to 3. Not really. There aren't that many cards in general that activate when a card in your spell and trap card zone is destroyed. Because the issue with this card is it wouldn't work if itself was destroyed. It would have to be something else was destroyed. Then you could activate it. So like it's an awkward one. More product if it was less stale less often. I feel more people would... I feel people would be as upset during moments like these as they'd be more brief. I guess, but I think fundamentally... Alright, it's a weird thing, right? Whenever a new product comes out, no matter what, people are generally excited for about a week to get to play with new toys, right? But after that week settles, it then comes down to, do we like this meta or do we not, right? So at Go Rush, it became Metarian meta. And a lot of people went, I don't like getting type change beam OTK'd. Then we got into like Psychic meta. And a lot of people went, I don't like my opponent gaining 1,000,000 life points and also having the potential to OTK me. And then Boost Red Boot came out. And people went, I don't like Mirageus OTKing me. And then Blazing Chemicalization came out. And a lot of people went, I don't like Gaia Metarian OTKing me. So, like, I think a more pressing issue is I don't think we've had, like, a really good meta since Go Rush came out. Now, again, that's always going to be subjective. Some people really like it. Some people really like the current meta. Some people like these previous metas. But I've seen enough people speak out and say they don't like this, that I feel like it's not just me, right? This isn't just a me thing. This is like, I would say the majority of the community, if not like a very vocal minority, but they're very vocal. Like, I see people complaining about this the entire time. Now, again, some of these metas have been better than others. Psychic Dragon meta, I didn't like this one very much, despite how much I really like Psychic. Metarian Psychic meta, again, not a big fan. I think this was a little bit nicer because it felt like all of these decks could take games off each other. But, like, if you went against Metarian, it was still like, oh, I can't leave 3 guys face up or I'm dead, right? More life points plus more traps plus skill rebalancing plus new cards. Sadly, I doubt we will get anything else than more cards from Konami. Duel Links Rush is just a cycle of boring meta plus less products all the time. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Hello, Brad, by the way. There are no OTKs in Rush Duel Links, just as there is no war in Ba Sing Se. Dark Galaxy release meta was all right. Yeah, I think that's the thing. There are times when the meta has been really nice. Like, if we go back further, I personally wasn't a big fan of this meta, specifically, like the Psychic. The Psychic deck itself kind of spoiled this meta. I think Cyburst Machine, Royal Rebel, SAR, Blue Eyes, and like a little bit of Bubble Era. This meta was like actually quite nice. Like if you just take out Psychic. Like if we go back to Heavy Strike, Machine Cyburst, Machine Cyburst went on a bit too long, in my opinion. Realistically, it just kind of did, because this was World's meta, right? Like this here was World's meta, and the only black sheep of it, this was the Psychic deck, in my opinion. I miss Blue Eyes Monarch. Blue Eyes Monarch was cool, but I think other than like if we take out Psychic, the rest of these decks had like a lot of back and forth. Now, again, I will stand by. Royal Rebels was a really fun deck. I really liked it. It did not have a lot of interaction. Royal Rebels was, I'm gonna sit here and stall until you overcommit, and then I'm gonna kill you. And as the opponent, you then had to play it sort of like you're playing against dragons, where you just don't want to leave your guys face up on the board because you'll get punished by your opponent just like doing things, and it just felt like ass. So like as much as I like Royal Rebels, and I'm a Royal Rebels defender, I identify that it was not good for the game, right? Or specifically, like, it being a strong, vastly played deck was probably not healthy for the game. But I just think everything since Go Rush came out has just been... The game's sped up too much. It's too fast now. The game has accelerated to the stage where we have so many relatively simple ways to kill your opponent very quickly without also giving us any defensive options to keep up, without giving us more life points so we can weather the storm a bit. It literally just feels like the game at the moment is who draws their OTK better, faster. And that's kind of it. Which, like, can be enjoyable. Don't get me wrong, right? As much as I'm kind of doomsaying, and I'm talking shit on this meta, I have thoroughly enjoyed many games playing Gaia Matarian. I have thoroughly enjoyed playing Gaia Matarian Mirrors. I think it's not like all of these decks suck and, like, I hate this game or anything like that. I just think it is important to be critical when it makes sense, right? One thing I hate is yes men, right? I hate people that bury their head in the sand. They pretend everything's completely fine when they know it's not. I have always despised that kind of attitude. I think if you don't like something, you should be vocal about it. Saying that, I think this meta, I said this at the start, I've said this several times, is still better than this meta. I would much, much rather be in a meta where Gaia is the best deck than be in the meta where Dragons and Psychic are the best deck. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. But I want to enjoy other deck. I mean, I understand that, Mono. I understand that. And I would like there to be more options for you to enjoy another deck without feeling like you're actively throwing. Because right now, if you do play a lot of other decks, you're kind of throwing, right? Realistically, you're playing one of these decks. If you're playing anything other than these, you're throwing, right? If you're playing anything that isn't these decks, you're either trying out something new, like Overlord, which, like, we have seen Overlord do, like, okay. I mean, I guess you could say Matarian is kind of a Gaia deck. But, like these are, like, the playable decks in the format, right? Now, I would like to see Counter Cannonball. NPCs all have it. I don't think we're ever getting Counter Cannonball. Counter Cannonball is so, like, antithetical to what Duel Links is trying to do. I agree, boss. I hate yes men too. Yeah, I mean, that's basically how I look at it, right? But again, I think people, they take it to the opposite extreme. They see you being critical about something, and they go, if you hate this game, why do you still play it? And it's like, because I like the game. It's because the game is fun. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy playing this game. Even when I don't like the meta, I still enjoy playing the game. Oh yeah, corporate bootlickers. I mean, kind of. I think it's more like fanboys, right? It's more like people that don't like confrontation, and people that, you know, a lot of people will associate themselves and, like, their personality or their self-worth with a game, and I think it's really not healthy to do so. I think at the end of the day, if there's something wrong with the game and it needs to be changed, if people aren't vocal about it, it will never get changed, right? Now, it still might never get changed, but it's definitely never going to get changed if no one speaks about it, right? Also, rather, people call it meme, I guess. I mean, yeah, I play meme. Meme is fun to play, though, right? And it's really enjoyable if you play a perceived bad deck and do well with it in a tournament, because then people are like, oh, you did well with meme? That's great. We only complain because we care about the game, or else we would just quit. Exactly. Like, I love Rush. I love all Rush. I love the anime. I love Duel Links. I love OCG. I like all of Rush. I think it's all fun. It's all great. It's all having a great time. I would just like it to be better. I don't think I've ever played a single format of any game ever and thought the meta was perfect. Literally never. That has never happened. There are times where I think the meta was a lot better and a lot stronger than others, but I don't think it's ever been perfect. It's never been exactly what I wanted, right? And that is fine, right? We're always chasing the dream. I wonder if there'll be any more speed players playing Rush since they gave Gaia for free. I assume that was their goal when they made the cost of a balanced meta. I still wait for games sometimes in COG queue. I mean, potentially. I haven't played much COG specifically. The only thing that annoys me is when people just talk about the game, this game, When they complain about the skills and life points being here/different, saying you don't like it is fine, but wanting it changed/removed is literally nonsensical. The whole point of Duel Links, it's a different format. I agree. I will say, though, when it comes to life points, I think you can... The life points don't have to be 1-to-1, right? Like, I don't necessarily think we need 8,000 life points in Duel Links. But I think because we're at the point where we can have different life points, we have 6,000, which means we can have it be 12,000. We could have it be 10,000. We could have it be 4,000 if they wanted to. They can change the life points however they want. And I just think changing it to a number that makes the game feel better is good for the game. Now, it might be that 6,000 is perfect, right? It might be that if we played, I don't know, if we had a way to test with 8,000 life points or 10,000 life points or 12,000 life points, we might immediately spot problems, right? But the issue is it's not easy to test that, right? Now, I don't know if you can, like, in duel rooms, make a custom duel room, you can, like, edit your life points or something. Maybe that's something you can do. But it'll be interesting to find out what the game would be like with different life point totals. It's like I was saying before, I think it would be interesting to see how speed would change with 8,000 life points. Like, if we played speed duels with 8,000, would the meta drastically shift? Like, maybe it wouldn't. But it would be interesting to find out. That's a separate argument. Duel Links is designed to be as it is. And at the mo, that's all we have. Yes. I mean, the most exciting times, in my opinion, for Duel Links are the times when decks that would not have been or did not perform well in OCG suddenly performed really well. Because it's cool, it's fresh, it's new, it's brand new ground you're treading. And that's not possible in OCG. This is only possible in Duel Links. And I think that's great, right? Like, Thunder being a playable deck was awesome. Those cards came out so early. They got a really good skill. Trigger Drago being a cool boss monster was really cool. Like, that was so much fun, right? And then just, like, when other decks don't get that same treatment and just come out like Sea Serpents and just do nothing, it's just like... Oh, guys. Because Sea Serpents is an anime deck. Like, Lightning Trigger Drago is not an anime card. That card, as far as I can remember, was not in a single episode of the anime. But Duel Links is so anime-focused that you would think anime decks should get priority. Now, to be fair, we haven't got the Sea Serpent Duelist, because he was in, like, what, one duel? So he's probably not going to make his way to Duel Links as a playable character. And that will probably have an effect on how powerful the deck will be. But it would have been nice to see Sea Serpent just get a better skill, right? Because it almost feels weird that they got a skill and the skill was bad, right? I'd almost just rather they didn't get a skill. But yeah. We have kind of run over a little bit, so I think we are going to be moving on to the end. This was like a little discussion stream. This stream actually got a little bit more heated than I was expecting. Originally, the plan was just to discuss kind of the meta and then talk about some trap cards that could come out. And that was kind of going to be the idea. But there ended up being a lot of like conflicting opinions, which I do value, right? I do think that it would be extremely like arrogant of me to think that I know what's best for the game. All I can say is I have ideas of how I would like to see the game changed, and I have ideas of what my ideal Rush Duel Links would be, right? And all I can do is share those opinions with you guys, right? It's not necessarily always going to be a one-to-one thing. It's good to have discussion. I always think it is very important to have a back and forth, have a dialogue, and then you can start to see other people's opinions. Because if you're in an echo chamber, nothing's going to change, right? But I will say as well that I think if people just resort to things like name calling and people just resort to like devolving the argument and just being really immature, I'm not realistically going to stand for that. And that's just how it's going to be, right? Like I expect a certain level of maturity in the chat, and I'm going to hold people to that, right? But thank you guys for watching. We'll be back again on Thursday, and that will be... I don't know what we're going to be doing. I'm actually kind of really hoping we get the speed update soon, because I really want to play some of the new speed decks. I really, really want to play Dinosaurs, and I really want to play the Spring Ants. They're the two decks I really, really want to play now. But other than that, I'm not really sure what we're doing on Thursday. There might be an Angel Cup. There might be something else. We might just do a ladder stream. I'm not really sure. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.